Hey, everybody out there. If there's anybody watching, hopefully there is. Hopefully, we have a few more people than we had from my Rush show uh, last week, although that got a lot of views. We didn't have very many live viewers. So tonight, it's looking like it's me and Serge. We may have a drop in at later, but we're not really sure. We haven't heard back from the person. And we initially had Matt from the Dark Path was scheduled to pop in for this deep dive on frontline assembly, but unfortunately he could not make it. His sister was coming into town, and he found out the last second and had to bail out. So anyway, Serge and I we discussed doing this deep dive. How about it, Serge? Probably 10 months ago, about a year ago, we talked about it. It was one of the first ones I wanted to tackle because this is a band that is near and dear to Serge and my heart. We've Hey Falafel, how you doing, buddy? We've been into this band for better part of 20 plus years, and in a weird, strange way, it's kind of how Serge and I met.
It's
It
very
was
much how
because
we
of this.
met.
It
Mhm.
is, yeah. It's pretty much how we met. We were at a porky. If you saw the Porcupine Tree stream, we were. I went down to see the first Porcupine Tree gig that I saw. Surge's second, and I was wearing a Frontline Assembly Fatalist shirt. And Serge, as I'm walking by him in the line's like, "Yo, dude, cool shirt, man, Frontline." And I'm like, "Somebody knows Frontline in this line of Porcupine Tree prog nerds? You're kidding me." So it was pretty cool because that's the way that we got to meet
And just in
22.
case anybody's jumping on this that does know PT, it's not a band that is remotely related to the industrial
Yeah,
genre. So
Porcupine Tree has nothing to do with Frontline Assembly. Totally different genres, the whole nine yards. But it is how we kind of came together. So, but anyway, we're going to talk about Frontline Assembly. We're going to get into a pretty deep dive on it. We're going to specifically really hit the early albums, the mid period albums, some of the later albums. I'm going to admit right now, I kind of started to fall off the Frontline train somewhere around 2010. It's not that I don't like the material, it's just that, well, we'll get to that in a little bit. There's a lot of it I felt that started to sound very samey, and they haven't been putting there for a while. They were putting albums out every 2, 3, sometimes every year during their
well,
heyday, I
certainly
would
early
say.
on they're putting like two a year at
Yeah,
first.
right,
Because
exactly. But as time went on, I think the genres kind of shifted and changed, and they weren't as continuous with releases. Plus, on top of that, Bill and Reese had the Delirium project, which I think was making a lot more money for them overall, and that created a diversion in the available amount of time. So, real quick, do you remember how you got into Frontline Assembly,
I
Search?
was
Because
thinking
I'm
about
trying to
this.
figure it out, and I can't remember.
Yeah, I was thinking about it too. I don't know if I can point to a specific time because I know it happened in college. I think college is when I discovered goth industrial in general. Um, um, this girl I was dating at the time, took her friends took me you know, to the bank, which was a golf club at the time in New York, legendary. And I walked in and I was like, holy shit! Like sometimes you walk in, like you experience something new, but it already feels like home. And that was like one of those moments. And I think I just started going, exploring the genres. Got into
Or were
KMFDM
you
back
already
then.
into pup? Were you into Puppy at that point in time? Had you already heard Skinny Puppy?
I wouldn't say I got into Skinny Puppy before Frontline. It was probably something I was exploring this same time more or less.
Okay.
Probably I discovered Frontline first, honestly. Um,
And around what album? Do you remember where you kind of came in?
so yeah, I'm trying to think what would have been the first album I bought. So the first time I saw them live was on the Implosion tour, which was obviously after the Implode album.
Which
Um,
tour?
Implosion '99.
Implosion. Okay.
So that's when Upload came out. So I got into them shortly before then. So it could have been Flavor of the Week. I
Okay.
know I know I got Millennium pretty early, so maybe it was that. Um,
Yeah, for me, I believe, I think where I came in, I went was in college for 2 years, and then they asked me to rethink my decision about college because I was doing so poorly. So I took some time off, and then I went back to community college, and this would have been about 93, 94. And I was working at a restaurant, and there was a lot of young kids in there. I remember this kid would always wear a skinny puppy shirt. I'm like, what the hell's a skinny puppy, dude? He's like, you never heard of skinny puppy, bro? And I'm like, I'm at that point I'm into like Smashing Pumpkins and Rush and all the stuff I typically am into. But he's like, no, man, you got to check these guys out. When did Pretty Hate Machine come out? Do you remember?
Uh,
94, 93, 95.
I'm gonna have to just look it up because yeah, I mean,
Yeah, look that up while I'm regaling this because that's around the time I got it. I think it was 94, somewhere in that range. Hey Phil,
no,
what's
it
up,
was
buddy?
89.
Oh, was
Pretty,
it 89?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, let me see then. Hold on a second here. Then maybe my timeline's off quite a bit because I remember very distinctly a guy I worked with named Dave. Uh, I remember Dave Oleski. He was an artist, and he was really into KMFDM, and he turned me on to Money and Nile, whenever those two albums came out, Neil and Money. That's kind of the first what I would think. 94 is Downward Spiral. Okay, so it was a little before that. I'm thinking that it was probably 92 then that I may have come into Frontline. So it would have been around Tactical Neural. And I first got into KMFDM, and then I kind of, yeah, and Nine Inch Nails, Pretty Hate Machine album. And then I kind of recall somehow, whether it was through magazines or through my buddy talking about them, I fell into Frontline. And I thought for me, it was probably the Millennium album, which I believe is 1994. But it may have
It would
actually
make the
been,
most sense for you from
well, because of the metal.
yeah.
But see, it seems to me that maybe came in on Tactical Neural. Maybe my buddy had TNI, and I kind of listened to it a little bit and was like, this is pretty cool. But I do know that my first album I bought by them was Millennium. So it was right around that 93, 94 era. And that's when I kind of started digging into Skinny Puppy a little bit and got into Throw Kill Cult and some of the other Electric Hellfire Club and Decrups and some of those other bands that were kind of in and around that era. And so that's kind of how I recall coming into it. And it was a different sort of sound because if you think about it, Killing Joke was kind of already doing some pretty industrial type music by that point in time, but I didn't really know about Killing Joke till a little bit later. So for me, Frontline was definitely a gateway band, and for the most part, I think it was the band that I most identified with. Although I do like Skinny Puppy, they're kind of 1 and 1A for me in the genre. I like Skinny Puppy for different reasons than I like FLA. So yeah, so it was just kind of weird that I came into them not because of the metal thing, but I kind of came into them probably because of the KMFDM Nine Inch Nails sort of connection with my friend Dave and some of those kids that I work with that were probably about 10 years younger than me. A lot of these kids were like 17, 18. They were still in high school working wait staff or, busboy jobs. And I was 28 going back to college trying to get my shit together. And, it's just one of those things. So, okay, so a little history on the band. There really isn't a whole lot of history because basically Bill played with Skinny Puppy live. He was not a band member. He was not a recording member of Skinny Puppy. And Skinny Puppy predates FLA by about 4 years overall. And but he did do some local gigs in Vancouver. Even went on a tour with them where he played percussion and bass synth. And he was billed as Wilhelm Schroeder, which was kind of a joke on the whole Peanuts character, the Schroeder from the Peanuts. And basically, he was with them for 6 or 8 months, and then he decided he didn't want to do a second tour with them, which was going to be more uh, a larger scale tour than they're just locally. But Bill was clearly part of that Vancouver scene, which was a pretty, obviously the when we talk about industrial, techno industrial, IDM, EDM, EBM, all that kind of stuff, those they all kind of breakbeat, they all kind of mix and meld some of the genres to a degree. We're talking about bands like some of the originators like Throbbing Gristle, Einsterzend, Neubauten, however you pronounce it. Some of these very, very early bands, Cabaret Voltaire, that's where a lot of, FLA, uh, Skinny Puppy, they took a lot of their influences from those bands. And
Front 242, I think, predated them
Front
and
242
probably
was early. They were
influenced them.
1980 in Belgium, exactly. Frontline probably that Front 242 is probably the biggest influence on the latter day FLA sound as they progressed. Um, so yeah, there was a lot of the European bands. A lot of that stuff then took their cues from Kraftwerk and Tangerine Dream, stuff like that, electronic music. So we could dig down that rabbit hole and we'd be here for hours tonight. So I'm not going to bother with that. But basically, Bill decided not to go out with uh, Skinny Puppy on this second tour that they were going to do, or third tour, whichever it was. And he decided to start recording a lot of home demos. And that's kind of where we're going to start. There really was no frontline assembly band. It was Bill Lieb, and that was pretty much it. He had some friends in the scene and in the music industry because of Skinny Puppy a little bit through their interaction with Wax Trax, and he knew some connections. Basically, he started to record these demos, and the very first demo was a cassette edition. There are three different iterations of this thing called Nerve War, which came out in 1986. It's the OG demo tapes. There were 50 to 100 of these cassettes that basically went to friends and some industry people. Again, there were three different versions of it. Basically, they all have different running times, different tracks, a lot of mix and match stuff. Um, let's see, there was a song in there called "Thy Glory," which Kevin Key requested be removed because it had a very distinctive bass line from a song that he did with, I think, David Tibet in Tear Garden. I believe it was David Tibet. Um, and it's much more industrial and abrasive. I gave it a quick listen. I'm going to tell you straight up, it just doesn't do much for me. It's very primitive. It is the most sought after product of Frontline as far as collectability, since there's so few of them out there. I've never really seen one like live. I've seen bootleg copies of it, but it was never anything that I was super interested in chasing down. Have you listened to that one, Serge?
No, I don't think I've ever run across that.
It's on YouTube. You can find it, and it's much more abrasive, more Throbbing Gristle ish. It's got a lot more. There you go, Serge. Do you have a channel? No, I was talking to him about that last night. We're working on that. We're getting around to that. Serge joins us on the Saturday night streams a lot, and
I just guessed.
he has a guest. And he likes guesting. We go way, 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 way back. So, yeah. So the Nerve War thing, I'm going to be honest with you. It's very rudimentary. It's very, very early drum machines, very early sampling, very early manipulation, sound manipulation. It's not
just
real
like just like their early stuff in general, right? I mean, you have a combination of just the state of art of technology still not great,
right.
and Bill's still discovering his abilities and what he wants to do. Just like a lot of bands, they don't normally you know hit it out of the park in their debut, especially for first demos. So I mean, that's to be
And this
expected.
wasn't even really a demo. It was just a shared thing amongst the Vancouver scene people, the club, the goth club scene and the industrial scene. It really is a very, very, very rudimentary thing. Phil, you'd probably like it a lot, Phil, because you're really into the punk scene and you're into that kind of lo-fi. So it's very lo-fi. It's out there on YouTube. If you want to find it, it's out there, pretty easily found. As I said, I can't even find any pricing information on what some of the copies have gone for. It has never been reissued. Bill's never really even talked much about it. I think he's kind of embarrassed by it a little bit. It is what it is. So we're not. That's all the time we're going to spend on that. Where we start to get into the first release material. And do you have these, the Total Terror ones?
Don't, not physically, no.
Okay.
You'll
So
you'll do all the early material, I think.
yeah, I'll do the early stuff, and you're going to do the later stuff, exactly, because you have all the later stuff that I don't. So this is Total Terror 1, and this came out on Cleopatra in 1994. There were 2 CDs that were issued by Clio, and then they did a compilation double disc one that came out later on, I believe, in the closer to 2000. This is one of the Clio originals, and you can see down here at the bottom there's a bit of a write-up about what these are. These are the original demos that Bill started to shop around to various labels, a lot of small labels, a lot of small European labels. As I said, these were reissued in 94. Again, they were originally issued on tape, between 50 and 100 copies. I've never seen these anywhere online either on Discogs. They're probably out there, and I'm sure a couple of them have traded hands, but I've never seen them. My cases are beat up, as you can see. I'm not one of these guys that I carried my shit around and played it a lot, so these are pretty beat up. But you can see this is the original stuff from '94. Cleopatra, who I don't even know if they're a label anymore, out of Los Angeles. And basically, this says on the back here, all the songs on this CD are the first ever recordings by Frontline Assembly. And by the way, it should be noted back then they were Frontline was 1 word, not 3 words. Frontline Assembly was, 2 words, not 3. It was Frontline and Assembly. Later iterations of the band became, I think with the first album, Initial Command, it became Frontline Assembly. And these were constructed in 1986 on nothing more than 8-track recording system. This is quite primitive by today's standards. The sound quality will not be as effective as our new recordings. However, the ideas are all there. We've decided to release Total Terror unavailable since 1986 due to popular demand and to stop the bootlegging of Total Terror, which we do not approve of. All the songs have been remixed, plus few newer other songs that have never been released before are on here. Stay tuned for part 2. Now, as far as I know, part 2, which is this one here, which was also released in '94, these all came out on tapes in 1986. As far as I know, all the original demos are out there with the exception of one song. There was one song that Bill had in reserve that never got put out on any of these OG demo tape CDs. These were remixed from the original tapes. They're pretty primitive. Pretty much Lieb is the only member, although Reese Fulber, who was about 5 years younger than Bill, and he knew him from the Vancouver scene there. Reese Fulber does contribute a little bit of mixing, remixing, and one song. He does contribute one song on here called Black Fluid, I believe it is. So Reese is not a member of the band. Again, this is still Bill Lieb as the band. That's it. Again, these were done on 8-track tapes. What I noticed, and first of all, what I remembered of these when I got these, I was not a huge fan of them. I thought they were extremely lo-fi, extremely primitive. But weirdly enough, when I went back earlier this week and started listening to these, I was kind of surprised at how much I liked some of the material. I'd say about 40% of the material, I was like, hey, this is not as bad as I recall it. But it wasn't great compared to where Frontline was going to go over the next 10 years, or the next 15 years. This stuff is very, very rudimentary. It's very primitive. Bill's vocals are very much buried deep in the mix. A lot of the times it's very effects laden with delays and processing, very rudimentary processing, keep in mind. Again, it was done on 8 tracks. The beats are very primitive because he's using very, very early sampling technology. He's using very, very early a Kai. I think it was a Kai 800 drum samplers, which, very, 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 very early technology. Couple tracks to mention: Falling There, A Decade. The song Total Terror is really cool. It's very atmospheric. It almost sounds like a Delirium song, which we're going to talk about Delirium in a little bit, but I'm not going to go there just yet. Some of you that know about Frontline might know who Delirium are. Okay, I didn't really know that Cleopatra was around anymore, Falafel. Thanks for that. See, I got to get you on one of these streams because you seem to know more than
I don't know if they were consistently around. But I did see something recently of Cleopatra. I was like, oh, wow.
I think they're really big on compilation
CDs. For the longest time, they would put out compilations. They would put out these like tribute albums where like
tributes,
industrial bands would cover like Madonna and shit.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think they have a lot of major label releases. I know that Killing Joke did some stuff through them as well, and I believe it was compilation or cover stuff. So real quick on this, let's see, on Total Terror 2, again, like I said, on Total Terror 1, Total Terror is a really cool song. Falling There is a great track, very atmospheric. A Decade and Upon the Cross. Upon the Cross is probably my favorite song. Extremely haunting. Very, very atmospheric and very much kind of like Tangerine Dream, only a nightmare Tangerine Dream in a lot of ways.
There's definitely like dark ambient elements too.
Yep.
It's kind of funny. I actually hadn't heard Total Terror. I just never went that far back. And then if you think of it, it's a little bit ironically titled, I think, because I was expecting kind of a more aggressive approach, but it's really more of that weird like spooky soundscape and again, you see these are seeds of ideas that you see Bill and and Reese eventually explore more, whether it's with Frontline or the earlier Delirium stuff or Synesthesia,
Right, you can hear some of this in Synesthesia for sure. You can hear some of the ideas where the technology is much better and they have bigger budgets. You can hear this stuff start to expand on later FLA. You can also hear it in ProTech and Equinox and Intermix and the Delirium stuff and some of that. Again, we're going to touch on those, but we're not going to get into those projects because that would be a whole different episode. But yeah, on Total Terror 2, They're Going to Kill Us is a great song. Face Puller is probably my favorite. That's super atmospheric, very soundtrack-ish, very synesthesia sounding. And again, to go back to Total Terror 1, Upon the Cross, probably the best track on there in my opinion. And Phil, you asked what are those albums? We're talking about Total Terror 1 and Total Terror 2. It's all the original 86 demos that pretty much Bill put out. There was a little bit of input from Reese Fulber, but it was almost primarily all Bill Lieb at this point, who, Bill Lieb is Frontline Assembly. Later, they would kind of become known as Bill and Reese, but that's quite a ways away at this point. This is still Bill Lieb's baby at this point.
And by the way, they came out later as Complete Total Terror, which kind of just combined the two.
Well, the Complete Total was the double CD package, right? Yep. Another song there, AEC Crunch, has lots of samples and atmospheric synths, lots of cool beats, and pretty good melodies on AEC Crunch. That was good. And then Guilty which is, I believe, the last track on Total Terror 2. Let me look here quick. No, it's track 11. Guilty is full of Charles Manson samples, I noticed. You can, from interviews that Manson did back in the 80s, probably 70s and 80s. And that's a haunting one with haunting synths. Really, really good one. So basically, those are the first two real recordings, but they're not official releases. This is not their first albums. These were tapes that came out in 1986 called Total Terror, and they were mainly to industry people and to friends in the scene. And so there was a total of 13 tracks on Total Terror 2 and 14 tracks on Total Terror 1. Would I recommend these to people? Probably only to completists, but to be very honest with you, there's some good stuff here. If they compiled 1 and 2 together and got rid of some of the more mundane tracks and some of the more annoying stuff, because let's be honest, the drum machines on here, super rudimentary and sometimes extremely annoying, but not as annoying as 1 or 2 albums that are coming up. These actually sound better, in my opinion, than the first 2 official albums, and I know you don't agree with me on that, Serge, but I actually like these better than the first 2 official albums, and we'll get into that in a minute here. So, going to first album here. This is the first album that came out in 1987. This is the original cover, I do believe, which came out on KK Records, a Belgian record company. This came out in 1987. It is called The Initial Command. And again, you'll notice it's still Frontline Assembly, not Frontline Assembly. So, Serge, why don't you go ahead and start with this one, then I'll tie back into that.
Yeah, so this was Lee Reese and Michael Balch. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, Balch.
Yeah. So, and I think he was involved in a few of the early stuff. I don't know. I think of the earlier era. I think this might be my favorite one. I like the more soundscapey songs. So, like Complexity, Casualties, and the one I don't know how to pronounce, which is the German one, or I think German.
Ausgang zum Himmel.
Yeah. And again, obviously, the sound is somewhat dated, but I think there's some nostalgia to that where, if you dig, that kind of 80s industrial scene, where a lot of that, a lot of the great stuff was really born out of, the dated portion of it is not too bad. And again, as Jeff mentioned, it's usually the percussion that's the most annoying
For sure.
in terms of what's the most dated sounding, but the atmosphere is already there, and to me that really distinguishes Frontline from a lot of the other bands. And how I fell in love with Frontline is they really build that, and I'm into atmosphere with bands in general. I love bands that are more really build the sound picture rather than just the more obvious stuff. So a lot of industrials just more in your face, I guess. And you can see here how again, the early seeds of what Frontline would be. So yeah, that's mine.
All right. I'm going to show this too. Since you mentioned it, I showed the original version. This is the OG KK version. This was, by the way, the first U.S. released Frontline Assembly album in '87, and this has the original 8 tracks on it versus what came out. There was a reissue by Clio, shockingly, This is the reissue version, and it starts out with two songs, Complexity and Intelligence Stream, which were not on the original album. This came out in '97. Those two start the album, which is odd. You'd think they'd put them at the end of the running order, but they put them at the beginning, which is very, very strange. Couple notes on this one. Um, the I hadn't listened to this in forever. My original remembrances of this from 15, 20 years ago was that it massively sucked. That's what I recall. And when I got it, I don't think I hardly listened to it at all. And just to give you a quick synopsis on the reissues, as I said, this came out in '97, but then it was also reissued by Third Mind, which was the UK record company that ended up picking up several albums by Bill and Frontline later on, very shortly actually. Also by Clio and Zoth Amag, which I think is a Euro distributor. This included Michael Balch on production, and Reese contributes on the writing on several songs and mixing, and also does a little bit of programming and playing. This actually turned out to be better than I remembered it. I really thought this was terrible in my remembrances, but I still don't think it's great by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think it compares to with their works that I'm going to get into that I think are superlative, which we're going to get to here in a little bit. But there are some really cool songs on here. The one that really stands out to me is that one that we both can't, Ausgang zum Himmel, which is track 4 on here. Man, it's, to me, this is what I wrote down. Lots of samples, simple beats. Whoa, what happened there? Uh-oh. My light just went out, guys. Hang on a second here. I'm going to go back to the, I'll talk while...
Jeff, the ultimate goth. So
yeah, I'm
so
the ultimate
can't see him.
dark god here. I'm going to plug in. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, we have a problem that we're trying to source out in our house with this side of the house. Unfortunately, we've got all kind of issues. Whoa, that really shows me how ugly I am there, doesn't it? let me tone some of that light down a little bit. There we go. We have a problem here. When I turn my light on, it dims a lot. So we had an electrician in here a couple days ago, and he's got to run something in the box because we have solar panels on the roof, and we think they may have done some kind of a weird installation because we didn't have a problem for a year, and now we've been having issues the last couple months. I got to use like a ring light type thing. Anyways, going back to Ausgang. Several tracks remind me of early Delirium on this album, Serge. I hear early Delirium, and I hear some Synesthesia on here, which is another side project of... I call Synesthesia the Tangerine Dream of Bill Lieb and Reese Fulber in a lot of ways. There's a little bit more beats in it, but they have very Tangerine Dreamish soundscape type ambient stuff. So the one that really jumped out to me was Intelligence Stream, one of the bonus tracks. Has a real Protect Synesthesia Delirium sound to it. It's a very cool dance floor track. Casualties has a really cool bubbling synths on it. The drum machine is annoying on this album. I'm just going to say it. To me, it's very rudimentary. It's very early in the game, and it grates on me after a while. I could never listen to this album over and over and over again. Ausgang zum Himmel's the best track on here for me. It's a nightmare soundtrack, very dark ambient. That song there, if I did a comp for somebody of the best tracks of Frontline to introduce them, I would definitely use that track because it's just such a mind fuck of a song. The rest of the album, kind of weak. I don't really, again, Insanity Lurks is okay. The State is okay. Casualties, but then as it goes on, 9 Times, Black March, No Control, Slaughterhouse, just not a big fan. So And I just looked. This is actually probably under license from KK. This is the third Mind version because you can see their logo down the bottom of the corner there. Trying to get it without any glare, but so again, and why do I have two versions of this album? Well, of course, I had to have those two bonus tracks, of course. Back when I was in my super fandom, obviously. Okay, so we're moving on to the second album, which came out in 1988, and it's called State of Mind. Come here. This is the original Dossier version, which is Dossier is the German record company, and Bill wanted to maintain a lot of flexibility, so he didn't sign long-term contracts for numerous albums with early on, and probably back then a lot of these small labels didn't want long-term contracts anyways because they weren't giving a lot of money to this guy. I mean, it wasn't like he needed massive studios. He was using a lot of primitive technology and drum machines and loopers and samplers and synthesizers. He was doing a lot of it in his probably bedroom, I would imagine. But this is the original Dossier version from 1988. I have the other version, the reissue version, but I can't find it. That's the only CD I could not find of theirs other than my box set, which I'll get into in a minute. This is 8 tracks on this. This was done on 8 track again. It was reissued in '96 from Clio with 2 bonus tracks. This now sees Michael Baltz become a quote unquote member at this point in time. I don't know a lot about Michael Baltz. I couldn't find a lot about him. He did play with
there's not a lot
Ministry.
out there.
Yeah, there isn't really. He played with Ministry and he played with the Revolting Cocks at one point in time, but it doesn't seem like he's around in music anymore. Falafel will probably prove me wrong by posting his entire discography here in a minute. But anyways, State of Mind. The second version was remixed. The Clio reissue in '96 with the bonus tracks was remixed. And this one, like I said, shows Michael Baltz on production, recording. He does do some of the synths. And I will tell you right now, this is my absolute least favorite album of theirs, bar none. There's about 4 tracks on it I can stand. Most of it, I think, kind of sucks. I'm just going to be blunt about it. I don't really like this album at all. Sorry, Phil. I know you said it's your spirit animal. It just doesn't work for me. It's just not a very good album. A lot of the tracks are very rudimentary. The melodies are not very good. Bill shouts the vocals a lot. It's like, and he's got echo and
he has not worked out how to use his vocals at that point.
no,
at least not optimally, and like that strain in his voice doesn't come out too well.
The other thing is, I noticed a lot of the songs are pretty average, and the drum machine sounds like a typewriter. It's like it's just this ticky tacky. It's just a terrible drum machine sound. I don't know what they were using for it. The technology just wasn't there. But I will mention a few songs. Testimony and Sustain are atmospheric and dreamy and ethereal, and the vocals are buried in the mix, so they sound better. Eastern Voices has some cool synth sounds to it. It's got almost a new agey instrumental sound. Resistance, the verse, by the way, if you listen to the song Resistance on here, the verse is 100% Mind Phaser off of Technical Neural Implant. 100%. It's the exact same vocal line as Mind Phaser, which we'll talk about shortly. It's the Mind Phaser chorus used as a verse, which means Bill just repurposed it. And if you listen to Frontline long enough, you'll find a lot of repurposed melodies that repeat. They kind of come up later on later albums. The only good songs on this album for me are the non-vocal tracks. They're the instrumentals, and they kind of have a little delirium, synesthesia kind of vibe to it, and that's the best I'll say. I would say to any person that was digging into Frontline, this is the very last place you want to start. Sorry, Phil, I love you, buddy, but this album sucks. Go ahead, Serge.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much we're on the same page there. It's probably my least favorite. I think you mentioned the 3 tracks I noted as that I wasn't annoyed by them were Testimony, Eastern Voices, and Sustain Upright. Again, more where not coincidentally less drum machine. So
Yes.
Yeah. Also one of their worst covers.
Oh God.
Cover art.
Even the reissue from hang on, I gotta change my view here a minute, guys. I'm having trouble seeing. Okay. Even the reissue, this it's much better, but it's still fucking awful. I mean, that is whoever said that's a good cover for an album. Went, yeah, that's a good cover. Was seriously had brain damage or something's wrong with him because that is just. It's not even scary. It's just some horrible doll figure that.
It,
It's just
in a way,
awful.
in a way,
Looks like it's in a tote.
even the color scheme, it kind of makes me think of the Insignificance tape cover.
It looks like it's yeah, it does. It looks like they're in a toaster. You know, it looks like this head's in a toaster, and then there's a really funky picture of Lieb and Balch. I'm assuming that's
Yeah.
Balch. This guy, there's Lieb, the big tall dude, and that's Michael Balch. I'm assuming. Um, this one it does say all songs by Bill Lieb, mixed by Lieb and Balch. So Bill wrote everything and edited by Dave Ogilvy, Dave Rave Ogilvy, who you will know. Some people the in techno should know that name because he got involved with Skinny Puppy and was, I believe, he produced some Skinny Puppy albums down the road.
Well, he also
Um,
produced like a million bands since then.
yeah. Here's the
Um,
other problem with this album: all these fucking songs are 5+ minutes for the most part, with the exception of one or four. You know, there's like a couple that are 4 minutes, but most of them are over 5 minutes. Just way, 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 way too long. Some of these songs. Yeah, it's a dog, and like Falafel said, he said Frontline was a band that had a hard time really shaping and identifying their early years, and the songs suffer. And you're right, it absolutely, man. So that's to me,
which again
that's
is not unexpected for a band in the early stage of its career, in a
yeah,
genre that was in the early stage of its
I think
existence.
that's true. Good point. Okay, so moving on, we're going to get to 1988. I had my notes out of order, and the third album is called Corrosion, and I do not have that, and I've never seen it. I think it was vinyl only. It was vinyl only, excuse me. And then they also put an EP out called Corrode. I'm sorry, they put an EP out called Disorder, which was vinyl only. I've never seen these. I've never hunted them down. I didn't want them that bad because I was always a CD guy by this time. What I do have instead is the Clio reissue from 1995, which is called Corroded Disorder, which has all of those tracks on it and a few additional bonus tracks. And this one was another one kind of like the Initial Command that kind of surprised me a little bit when I went back and listened to it. I would say this is a 50-50 album for me with regards to Frontline. What this says on the inside, and I'll read it just so you know. Corroded Disorder is a hybrid of the two deleted Frontline vinyl releases, Corrosion and Disorder. Excerpts from both albums were re-released on the compact disc Convergence, which I do not have that Convergence compilation. I've seen it, but I don't have it. Along with bonus tracks Solitude of Confinement, Collision, and Head Case Far Gone. Corroded Disorder features these tracks and Disorder features, I'm sorry, Corroded Disorder features these tracks and the whole track list of the two vinyl albums, plus the added bonus tracks Mutate and Teardown in digital remaster quality with new artwork as a document for the future. Again, this came out on Clio, shockingly, which a lot of their stuff, early stuff, did. And this came out in 1995, and I have to, or 96, excuse me, 96. And I have to say, it has Dave McKean artwork, and we'll talk about Dave McKean shortly, because he becomes a pretty instrumental part of the whole. Yeah, it does suck, Falafel. I agree. Um, John, I'm going to get back to your question here about this. We'll talk more about Reese's production work shortly. I do like all those albums a lot. I think Reese is a fantastic producer. He did Fear Factory. He was a member of Fear Factory. They, Demanufacture.
I mean,
Great
he
album,
produced
obviously.
most of Fear Factory for the last God knows how many years.
Right, right. He did other stuff. Obviously, Conjure One was his own project, but he did a lot of other production. I think he's brilliant at production. But I'm not gonna. I don't want to derail my way of going through where I'm at right now. This album again surprised me. It really surprised me quite a bit. Let's see. I just want to look at my notes here. It's got a lot of Skinny Puppy influence on several of the tracks, quite frankly, in my opinion. It sounds more Skinny Puppyish than most of their other early works. It, um, for me, the best tracks on here are Lurid Sensation, The Right Hand to Heaven, On the Cross, which is a really killer track on the cross. Um, what other one is on here that I really like? Hang on a sec. I can't read my notes, of course. Controversy is pretty good. Dark Dreams is really good. Body Count. The Rack. The Rack is weird. That's just all samples. Head Case Far Gone. Would I recommend this? I'd say yes down the road. If you get into Frontline, this is one to dive back into later. Um, I wouldn't start with this one, but I got to be honest with you. Like Initial Command, I was a bit surprised that I enjoyed this as much as I did because I kind of remember when I got it back when it came out in '96 or so. When I grabbed it, I was like, a lot of this just kind of is grating on my nerves. Again, the drum machine's a little rough on this one at certain times, but the tracks that I tend to gravitate on here are like the ones I gravitate to on the Initial Command and State of Mind. The more soundtracky ones, the ones that sound more like Delirium, the ones that are more ethereal and mysterious sounding. Those are the ones I tend to like versus where they go in the next few albums. But this is worthwhile addition to your Frontline uh, collection if you like what you hear when you start digging into them, maybe in the middle period, which is going to be the period I'm going to really focus on. Serge is going to talk about the later period. And what was your? Did you dig into this one at all, Serge? Did you go back and check it out?
Yeah, I went back. It's I like it better than than State of Mind, but um, a couple of tracks I noted was Right Hand of Heaven and Dissect, um, The Rack. Again, there's kind of a nostalgia sound for me, so I don't
Right.
I don't exactly hate it or anything. It's not one I would pull necessarily when I want to listen to Frontline, but it's you know as far as early stuff goes, it's worth checking into. And yeah, I absolutely like. Um, I love cover artists that make interesting cover art. And Dave McKean, I do know him from Sandman originally, even before anything else. It was kind of cool to find out he did covers for Frontline because I didn't know that connection.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No, well, not I found out later. Obviously, I mean, I know it now. I have a book that McKean put out with all his cover artwork. So
Oh, do you? Okay.
yeah, he's really cool, unique artist. I think with his kind of like collage influenced work, um, and also like if you ever seen his movie Mirror Mask, that very
Yeah.
it's kind of surreal,
Surreal.
world kind of you instantly know that it's his.
Yeah. Who's the director that did? Is it Benicio del Toro that did Labyrinth or not Labyrinth? Fuck. Pan's Labyrinth. Did you ever see that?
Yeah,
Is that Benicio del Toro?
yeah.
Okay. Didn't he work with McKean? I'm thinking that McKean
Um,
worked on some of his stuff too, somewhere along the line. Falafel's gonna know, I'm sure.
Maybe honestly don't remember, but but
Shit,
yeah,
I shouldn't have you on here tonight, Falafel. I didn't really think about it. I know I've talked about doing it. We should have pulled you on because you seem to know a fair bit about this material. Let me know if you want to join. I might have you come in later on if you're interested in doing that. Anyways, I'm going to keep going for now, but we might, if you're interested in jumping in, maybe I'll I'll send you the link on Instagram or something like that if later on if you feel like joining in and talking about it. So that is Corroded Disorder. Again, not a bad album. Still not one of the ones I would recommend you get started with, but not a bad album at all. Much better than I thought it was going to be. So now we're moving on to
Worth
19.
noting that at this point, no Reese. So this is just Leave and Bulge. So that
I'm sorry.
so worth noting, no Reese for this or the next album. So that I
That's
think that
right.
kind of
Reese was
plays
not
into the
involved in that.
sound.
That's correct. So we're going to move on to 1989, and Michael Balch is still in the fold. Now he's doing more writing, and he's doing a lot more programming and mixing and production work. This is called Gashed Senses and Crossfire. And this is where they kind of got some financial backing. This is the Roadrunner issue. It was originally put out on Third Mind, which again was a UK record company. Also on production was Anthony Valchik, which I believe he's another guy that kind of is in that Vancouver group of musicians and the industrial scene up there. This is, again, the Roadrunner reissue, which I believe came out in 90. I'm not sure on that. It says 89, so it probably was. This one, gotta be honest with you, not a great album for me. I don't like a lot of the production on it. It's super sample heavy. This one, if I recall correctly, was one of the first that they did at Vancouver Studios. And let's see here. I want to make sure I get this correctly. This is where Greg Reilly starts to come into the picture. Not fully, but he did do some remixing on here. And actually, Reese Fulber loaned a bunch of equipment to Bill for this, so he is involved from that aspect of it. I don't really like this album. I listened to it yesterday, and it just didn't do a whole hell of a lot for me. No Limit's okay. Antisocial's okay. Digital Tension Dimension's okay. Big Money's okay. But again, now this is where Bill starts to be a little more out front with his vocal. And he starts to add a little bit more what I would call quote unquote vocal harmonies. And I use the quotation marks somewhat facetiously there because Bill's early vocals were not very melodic. They were kind of shouted. They were kind of grunts, and he would do a lot of ooh, 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 and then the echo would be thrown on and stuff like that. I do like the artwork. The artwork's kind of cool looking, but this album just doesn't move me much. However, it was well received in the dance community. A couple of these songs are pretty dancey, if you will, and so that one, just I don't have many notes on that because I just didn't like it very much. How about you, Serge?
Yeah, so I think this might actually be my least favorite. I think just the sound, not only is it dated, but uncharacteristically for Frontline, it sounds empty. Like there's not a lot going on. Like it's
Yeah.
missing something. Like again, Frontline is very good at at having that atmosphere, and it's just missing here. It's just not there. It's very minimalist, really. And yeah, I mean, Digital Tension Dementia was the first single, and it got some club play. Shutdown was the only track I think I noted, although the vocals are, a little rough. But yeah, it's not not ideal for me.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that next, Falafel. Exactly. By the way, Falafel, my Instagram is Metal Madness 66. You're gonna have to send a friend request. I'll check it here in a few minutes, and then I'll send you the link, and maybe we can try to have you on. Hopefully, you have good internet connection. You seem to, but we'll have you come on after we get into maybe the middle period of stuff. So you'll be our special guest tonight. But anyway, this album just does nothing for me. It's it's right there with State of Mind. As far as, actually, I like some songs on State of Mind better than I like on this one. Now that I think of it, because none of the songs on Gash Senses have any kind of atmospheric feeling to them. They're more like they're trying to figure out how to incorporate the dance element and the breakbeat element into their sound. And frankly, the songs just aren't that good. There's not that many hooks to them. The vocals are kind of cringy at times. There's a shitload of samples, a lot of manipulation on the sound, and I don't know, man. I just don't really fucking like it. To be blunt with you, I just don't like it. And this and State of Mind would be my 1 and 1A of stay away from these. Frankly, I hadn't listened to this probably in 20 years, and if I were to live another 20 years, I kind of doubt I would listen to this. To be blunt with you. So, moving on, we have 1989. They do a live album. It's a limited 4,000 vinyl press from Third Mind, from a UK live show that they did. It's terrible recording. I didn't even go listen to it. Bill hates it. Michael Balch hates it. They think it's a total piece of shit. It was a cash grab. And as I said, there are 4,000 numbered copies. I would imagine they're probably worth something, maybe 75, $100. But it was for the Gash Senses tour in Europe, and it's just kind of garbage. To me, I wouldn't even bother looking for it. So, give me 1 second, sir. You probably didn't check out the live recording.
No, not that one. No.
Okay, let me jump over and send Mario the link here. And do you have something you can entertain our 5 people with real quick?
We didn't quite get to. Well, I'll let you cover Caustic Grip because I think it's still a little bit before my time. But
yeah, you know what? I can actually talk about that. So Caustic Grip was 1990, and that's the first album. They're still on Third Mind at this point, although I have the Roadrunner reissue, which I'll show in a minute. They have a $20,000 budget. That's the first time they've had like a real budget to record. They also got distribution with Wax Tracks in the United States, which is pretty important.
Which was a big deal at the time.
Right.
Kind of legendary label with,
Yeah, let me hang on one
certainly
second.
brings you exposure to the scene in general.
All right, let me hit Mariano with a.
So while you do that, so Caustic Grip was the first like just Lieb and Reese album. I think
Correct.
I think it's still them evolving. So skipping a little bit forward, I think T&I was the first mature Frontline album. Caustic Grip, I think, to me was still kind of putting it together. I still feel like it's not as full sounding. It was, I think, still trying to maybe focus more on getting the songs into the clubs at the time. You see that with Isolate, but again, you see it kind of growing where like Threshold, I think I view that as a precursor to their like more melodic, like mid-tempo stuff that came later. The Chair is great. That's my favorite track. Very, very dark and fuller sounding than the rest of the album.
All right, hang on 1 second.
And I think Isolate I don't know if that was their first video.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I got some notes on it. Sorry about that.
I'm pretty sure
Mariano, I'll let you know when to jump in, okay? Just give us a few minutes, all right? I want to get through some of this real quick before we add anybody else in. So, for Caustic Grip, $20,000 budget, still on Third Mind from UK. Wax Tracks distribution in the U.S. jumps in. As Serge said, this is the first time that Reese becomes a full-time member. This is also the first time that Greg Reilly becomes a full-time member as well. When I say full-time member, I don't mean of the band, of the production team. And I think that's very important because Greg Reilly's production over the next several albums is what really propels, I think it propels FLA to the forefront of
Oh,
the
for
genre,
sure.
and it makes them, quite frankly, it puts them in the upper echelons of the bands that are this burgeoning genre. Um, this sold about 70,000 units after it came out by '94 when it was reissued by, and I have the reissue here. This is the original Roadrunner reissue right here from '94. Again, it came out in '90. Um, it sounds much bigger budget to me. It sounds like a real record, whereas all their other stuff sort of sounded like it was produced in somebody's bedroom in a lot of ways. There's better equipment, better synths. The drum machines are much better, obviously. For me, the best tracks on it are Resist, the first track, which is kind of like the big, album opener. You've got, oops, the song Isolate, which was a big dance number and also got played on MTV, which was their very first MTV video. I also like the song Provision is pretty good. And I like Mental Distortion. That's got a lot of really cool samples on it, a lot of movie samples. I didn't write all those down because there's a lot of them. And also, this is the first album to have electric guitar on it, we should add, by a guy named Jeff Stoddard. He provides guitar on the track Provision, which is probably why it's my favorite song on here. And let's see, what else do we have on here? The only thing I don't feel is great about this album is I don't feel that production-wise it's aged very well. It still sounds like it's kind of that era, which a lot
Yeah.
of
No,
the
it
90s albums don't sound, you know?
there's definitely again some kind of a dated feel to the sound production.
Yeah, and this also has the, on the back of the Roadrunner label back here, it's got the, let me get here. Hold on. It says Roadrunner Records, New York, blah, blah, blah. Issued under license to Roadrunner Records from the All Blacks BV Roadrunner Records. I've never known what that's all about. It has something to do with the original Dutch label, BV, All Blacks BV. I think that's what they were called. Um, again, Mariano may know what that is. Distributed by Red Distribution. And again, this came out in 1992. This is the reissue from All Blacks BV, made in the U.S. So, I like this album. I don't love it. I think it's the first album of the new era of what FLA are going to become. When Serge and I went to see these guys down the last time I saw them, I think probably last time you saw them too, at Days of Darkness Festival in Baltimore. Bill came out and was standing at the bar, and I ran over to him, and I'd met him 2 other times, '96, and then I met him in 2000, and he signed. Reese didn't come out, but Bill signed and wrote Baltimore 2018, and I'll tell a little story about why he did that when we get a little bit further down here. I like this album, and again, it's probably the first of the new age or new era of Frontline, but it's not my favorite by far. Um, the only other thing to add to that is that after that came out, they put out this single, which was written during the album. It's called Virus, which has two different versions of Virus, a remix, one called the Aggro Mix, and then there's a dislocated mix of the song Resist. Now, this is not the first album they started issuing remixes on. That one was for the prior album, Gashed. There was two singles that came off that with CDR single or CD singles with additional tracks and remixes on them. I did not pick those up because I don't like that album, but I did get this. And this one, the last time I looked, was kind of pricey. I haven't looked in a long time to see if it's still valuable. This came out on Wax Tracks, I believe. Let me look here to make sure. Pretty sure it is. Yeah, Wax Track mail order. And shows Caustic Grip, Provision, No Limit. So you can see the other albums that they have in their distribution level. It's pretty cool. I like the color scheme for it. Have no idea where I got this. I think I found it like in a used bin somewhere for like $1. And I recall at one point it was up around the $40 or $50 mark. Probably isn't anymore. I do like that artwork quite a bit. The song, kind of forgettable. Made in Canada label down here, kind of cool. Licensed from Third Mind, Charming Music, 1991 Wax Tracks. Just kind of a cool collectible. Decent song, but not really a great song. So, anything more you want to add on that one, Serge?
No, I think that's all I
Pretty
had.
good for that one.
Yeah.
All right, now we get to what I kind of feel is the good shit. Okay, cool. Sean Embry from Napalm. Yeah, absolutely. Um, this is where I think everything started to connect for Bill, for Reese as songwriters, as innovators in the genre. And I don't want to say maybe that they are full on innovators like Genesis and like, maybe even the guys in Skinny Puppy are a little bit because Skinny preceded these guys. But this album right here is a fucking classic. It's absolutely an amazing album. I hadn't listened to it in at least 12 or 13 years. I threw it on 3 or 4 days ago, and I absolutely was like mind blown how good this album is. It is probably my second favorite album of theirs overall, maybe third. It's in the top three for sure. This is the Third Mind's original press right here. The artwork is fucking badass, and I believe I don't want to. I want to make sure I say this correctly. Hold on. I don't want to say that McKean did play around a little bit on Gash, but I'm looking for where he became like their.
I think Millennium was his first real cover.
Well, no, I think it's this one right here.
Was it?
Isn't it
I feel like-
Tactical? Let me double check.
No,
No, it's not. It's Dave Copenhagen. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. It probably was Millennium then. I thought it was this one. I don't know why I thought that.
It is a good cover.
Really, really cool live photos from wherever, probably in Europe, because I doubt they toured the United States at this point yet. They were probably barely even known. Some cool imagery there, kind of haunting, where they played with a lot of smoke and they were backlit and all that. I like the interior too with the cyborg technology, and obviously they were very influenced by Blade Runner and Star Wars and all kinds of really cool period movies at that point in time. All titles written by Bill and Reese, production programming FLA, engineering additional production Greg Reilly, assistant engineer Mike Lenault, programming blah 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 blah, Creation Studios Vancouver. And what's interesting to note is here it says live assault assistant Chris Peterson. Tuck that name away because that name's going to become a very prominent name in a few albums, Chris Peterson. But he did play live with them when they would go out live. I love the disc. The CD on this looks so fucking cool. The color scheme is just really rad. I love this album. I think it's a fucking amazing album. What really connected on that album was, and it's the sixth album, as I said, Roadrunner reissued it later. I got this album rules, super atmospheric, haunting, gateway album, ambient, dancey, club friendly, but still solid songwriting. Trying to read my notes here. Even there's some pop elements to some of the songs here. I hear. By pop, I mean things that you can play on the radio. There's more of an EBM, electric body movement sound to it. IDM, intelligent dance music, than straight up industrial. They kind of left some of the industrial trappings behind on this album, and it's also the very first album that came out in Japan. The singles Mind Phaser and The Blade are just absolutely fucking amazing. They use the vocoder for the first time, really prodigiously on this. There's just a lot more melody on here than Caustic Grip, and there are some drum and bass elements, super melodic synths, and to me, it's a defining electronic IDM, EBM album. The best track for me are the two singles, and I really love I love the song The first song, Final Impact, is amazing. Biomechanic is great, and the song Gun is fucking awesome on this album. It's just, to me, this is an album this is an album I would say, if you're going to jump into Frontline Assembly, this is a really good starting point if you like electronic music, because it's got all the best elements of Frontline in it. It doesn't have any guitars on it yet, which are about ready to show up.
Blade
But
does.
it doesn't.
Well, I don't know if it's sampled. It might be sampled, but Blade has guitar on it.
Oh, you're right. It has sample guitar. That's not live guitar. Yeah. But it's not like super overriding. The guitar is not overriding like it's going to become. This album's just great. And I should mention real quick, they dropped 2 singles from that. You have these, Serge?
No, don't have the singles.
Yeah, these are the Third Mind singles. This is for Mind Phaser, the 12-inch version. It's also got the edited version, so that's only 4:30 long instead of the 5. The original album version for Mind Phaser's 5:06. They cut about 30 seconds off, and then there's a 12-inch version that's 6:33. It's really cool. And then 2 unreleased tracks on here called Toxic and Mutilate. They're great songs. These were actually issued in Japan. And then the one for The Blade, which is a killer song. They have the Techno Head version, which is 6:36, the Blindfold version, which is 6:35, and then there's 2 other non-album tracks called Reanimate and Laughing Pain. Laughing Pain is fucking badass on this. And I love, again, these Third Mind artwork. The artwork on the disc is so cool looking. To me it is, anyways. I just love the aesthetics of these releases that came out with the singles and with the actual album. You can see here's the Mind Phaser one. Just the color schemes, the black with the cool colored writing for the actual album. I can't. What do you want to add on this one, Serge? I mean, I'm sure you got some good notes on it.
Yeah. So, yeah, to me, this is where the elements of Frontline come together. I think The Blade is a good example of a song where all elements come together. Where, like I said, you do have the guitar samples, you have like the vocoder vocals, Mind Phaser. There's a reason. So the biggest website for years that was kind of keeping track of Frontline and all their side projects was called mindphaser.com. There's a reason for that, right? Outcast is another fun like dance floor track. Morse. I love Biomechanic. Again, I'm really I'm really into their like cinematic side. So we'll get to that. I don't know if we're going to talk about like Live Wired, but that's a great version of it there.
And really, a lot of these songs I think would lend themselves fantastically to movie soundtracks. If you took the vocals out, they're just so cinematic, like you said, so soundtracky sounding. And I'm pretty sure on this album there's Blade Runner samples on here. I know there's other movie samples. I didn't bother writing down.
This was a period where they loved movie samples.
Mariano, if you want to jump in, man, jump in. I'm just going to ask that since you didn't really prepare for this and you didn't know you were going to be jumping in on this, I'm going to run through the history out of the album. If you have something really pertinent to add, we'll throw that in, and then we'll get your thoughts on each album as we move along. But if you want to jump in, feel free to hop on, and we'll include you in the stream. Moving on to 1994. This is when they are signed properly to Roadrunner, and this is when they put out Millennium. This is probably my first. It's either this one or TNI were my very first. You want to show that, Serge?
Again, first proper, not counting the reissues, first proper McKean cover.
Okay, so my bad. I
can see his, again, kind of collage style.
Right, and I have
surreal, creepy kind of,
I'm gonna show you mine because mine actually is signed by Bill in 2018. There, yes, I'm a badass because I
like how he dates his signatures.
Well, he didn't. There's a reason why. Don't you remember when we were at the show? I showed you that my box set. I'm going to show you that on the next album.
Yeah,
my box set from not Live Wired, but Hardwired, is signed 1996, and I mentioned it bill, and he goes, "Well, hell, I'll just put 2018 on here for these." So he did all of them like that. So Millennium, first proper Roadrunner release, first major distribution record. Electronic execution, Lieb and Fulber. Engineered and mixed by Greg Reilly. Technical support, Reilly Unique. Assistant engineer, Delwyn Brooks. This was mastered at Bernie Grunman. So these guys have jumped into the big time now. I heard a podcast with Reese back about a year ago that he did. I couldn't find it again to support my information, but it turns out that Roadrunner gave them about $300,000 to work on this album, which is fucking insane when you think about it. For 1994, that's a shitload.
Pretty surprising. Yeah.
Shitload of money, and it didn't sell anywhere near what they had hopes for it. So it was like basically a one record deal essentially. They still distributed stuff in the future for them, but they weren't essentially a major label signing after this, because for Hardwired they went to Offbeat in Germany. But yeah, so this is 1994, and what we have with this album is the first large wholesale use of guitars and guitar samples, like to the point of almost absurdium. Hang on, I'm gonna add.
What's up?
Hey,
what's up,
Mariano?
How are you?
How are you doing, man?
Okay. It's a really hot day here in Argentina, but now it's a little rain. So, okay, sorry if my speaking is a little awkward. Okay, I'm going to try my best.
Hang on, I'm going to change the layout here so that we can all be seen better.
Yeah, I have my laptop. I am using my cell phone, so I have my laptop here to contrast.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Not a problem.
No, still talking.
Yep. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through. We're at Millennium now. Did you want to add some thoughts on Tactical Neuro that you just jumped in?
I remember. Sorry, I a little rusty with my memory of the records, but I like a lot that record. I remember it's like a good mix between that, like a lot of layers in the music and that danceable aspect of the music of Frontline Assembly. So
right,
it's a really great record. I admit I like a lot of Caustic Grip a lot, maybe because it's more raw. I feel to have a more raw spirit, but I like a lot. For me, those three records, Caustic Grip, Tactical Neuro, and the next Millennium, I think really three great records from the band, because I like a lot the next album after that, but I feel that the band gonna fall a lot after that. I don't know. Mostly because it's not the aspect that I want a lot about industrial music,
Well, it becomes a little bit more mainstream. They start using the electric guitar a lot more. Yeah, it becomes a little bit more radio friendly.
Yeah, I take a lot of influence from the electronic music that it was popular at the time. So, and some kind of that music I like, but I don't think in the Frontline Assembly formula works that well.
Well, I would disagree with you on that, but that's my opinion, because those are my favorite albums.
I don't know. Maybe I have to listen the records again, but some aspects are not that bad. Some songs are kind of catchy for the Frontline Assembly, but I don't know. Don't click with me that much. I don't know, because I compare Frontline Assembly with Skinny Puppy, and I feel Skinny Puppy in the more experimental records in the 90s was really interesting. No, Last Rise is
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
And I don't know. I feel a distortion when I heard those. That's what happened with me. For example, when Skinny Puppy tried to experiment with those sounds in the 2000s, when tried to take that Chemical Brothers influence, I don't know. For some reason, I feel I don't like. I like the early Chemical Brothers records, but I don't like that sound in Skinny Puppy. How they built, no?
You mean when they tried to enter the metal stuff, like the Process and stuff like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And how Ogre put those clean vocals, I'm not fan, but I don't know. I feel in the case of frontline assembly, some aspects work, some aspect not work so much for me at least. And I like a lot of industrial music that in the more rock side and more traditional. But I don't
Okay.
know. Maybe I had to listen again. Sometimes I change the opinion. No, you know.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on here with Millennium. I'm gonna get some notes out here.
Yeah,
That I
it's
put
the
out.
first like kind of metallic
Right.
frontline
So
assembly album.
they added the guitars and the guitar samples. There was live guitar playing by Devin Townsend, who at that point was
Yeah.
kind of fairly unknown to the wider masses. He was from Strapping Young Lad. Unless you really knew niche metal, most people didn't know who Devin Townsend was at this point in time. They kind of found out
Right.
about him later on when he became, the Devin Townsend that we all know about now in prog and metal. There were a ton of Pantera samples used, some Metallica samples that were used. There was also another guitar player named Don Harrison that was on 2 tracks. Devin was on 3 tracks. As you said, Serge, this was the first time Dave McKean artwork featured fully. This was also, boy, I hate when I can't read my own fucking writing. They also used a sample from Sepultura on Victim of a Criminal. It was also the first album that they put a pure rap artist. They used a guy named
and last.
what first and last? Yeah, what's his name here? Master of Defense.
Share the Minister of Defense.
Shay, the Minister
of Defense. Yeah.
Which I've
never
been able to find out much about.
I haven't either. I don't know much about him either.
Some Canadian dude they found, I guess in
probably.
Yeah, really obscure dude.
Let's see. Here we go. Surface pattern was used in a horror movie called Hideaway, which I never saw that, so I don't know about that. The lyrics became a lot more political than usual too. I mean, if you listen to the lyrics for several songs on here, they're far more political than they had ever been before. Usually it was about technology and science fiction and things like that, but not now. They actually got into political lyrics. There was also some samples from Depeche Mode used, Tears for Fears, and Front 242. As we talked about, Front 242 is a very big influence on early Frontline Assembly. And this also had several remixes, which I'm going to show those real quick. They had the Millennium remixes, which has the Millennium 1000 Years of Decay remix, the Left in Ruins remix, a bonus track called Trans Time, Until Death remix. Most of these are just variations on the theme. Has the lyrics on the inside. Some are a little longer, some are a little shorter, and then they did Surface Patterns remixes, which has what's this got on it here? This has Surface Patterns Surveillance remix, the Chemical Cauldron remix, a bonus track of Internal Combustion, and the Scarification remix. Again, these are all just, I think these were just ways for them to make extra money. And also they use this in the dance clubs. They play these remixes. Many of them were done by the band themselves. Then they would start to farm out to other bands. That was a big thing. In my mic, that was a really big thing in the 90s, early 2000s, to do these dance remixes and to do these remixes for clubs. And I fell prey to it and bought all the shit. For me, the songs on here that I really like are Vigilante is really badass. Millennium's a great tune. Really, really great tune. Liquid Separation, Search and Destroy are great. Surface Patterns. The first 5 tracks I really, really like, and I really like Sex Offender. I'm not crazy about the rap song. Division of Mind is okay. This Faith is probably the only song on there that's a pure EBM that doesn't have any actual or IDM song. It doesn't have any guitars on it. All the rest of them do. Because I'm a metal guy, I tend to like the guitars, but I got to be honest with you. And going back and re-listening to it, it's almost like there's too much guitar on this album.
Well, I mean, you could definitely say that. It's
Yeah, why don't we go to you, Serge? Why don't you give us your opinion on it, and then we'll come to you, Mariano.
So
Yeah.
I think I agree for the most part of what you said. Millennium is cool. I do like Vigilantes. If, like I told you, I was listening to Vigilante today on the way to work, the live wired version, and man, um, surface patterns. The walk sample is a little too obvious there.
Yeah.
I really do dig the the no guitar track, this faith. I thought that was very cool. Sex Offender, as you mentioned, I think that's the track where guitar works the best, where it's not overwhelming. And I actually do like the rap song. I thought the lyrics are kind of cool. It's an interesting. I like when Frontline surprises you a little bit with some things, and that was one of them.
Yeah, for me,
I would say,
I'm
last
not
thing I wanted, probably the last thing I had in my notes is this is the album probably that's closest overlap with like KMFDM sound.
True.
Yeah.
I think they explored it, and it's like overcorrection, right? So they check something out, then okay, some of it is cool, but maybe not so much, and move on to the next thing. And we'll get to that later, but Townsend did play guitar.
Nope.
The microphone.
Serge, you muted yourself.
The mic.
You muted yourself.
Yeah, I don't know how I did that. Hopefully, I don't know how much time.
Well, you said Devin Townsend played guitar, and then you blanked out there.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, he did play guitar in the next album, but the next album wasn't so kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute, because I think they got the balance right on the next album. Anything else on that? Just to reiterate one thing you said about you like the rap track. I'm not a rap guy. Remember, I'm 10 years older than you, so I'm an old fuck, and rap was kind of already, by the time rap started to become a big thing, I was kind of beyond it. But this actually is what I don't like about it is the rap sections are pretty cool and the lyrics are great. The problem I have with it is during the chorus, when they kind of get into the bouncy section, I don't like the synths on it. It's kind of almost bubbly, and it sounds menacing during the verse sections.
Right, yeah. I agree with you. I think it's certainly lyrically, it's a very aggressive song.
Yeah. And it almost sounds cheesy when they get to the verse when they're doing the bouncy section.
Right. Yeah. No, I can see that. But yeah, I think, and this was before, I think, the rap metal great. Well, maybe it's during, I guess.
The early maybe. It was in the middle.
It was in the middle of it. Yeah. They definitely were trendy in that sense. Let's be honest. Bill's always been a bit trendy when it comes to picking up sort of things that are going on and bringing them.
And we'll see that later too. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Mariano, what you got on this one?
I don't know what to add to that one that you say and Serge say, but I feel it's a really consistent and good product for the time. I feel it's a product for the time. I don't know any time that this kind of record would happen, that 94. So have really great songs. I really like this album, and I like the rap song. Maybe because I am a lot more younger. I am 32, so I am more contemporary to this kind of sound, and I like hip hop. But I don't know. I feel it's a really good and consistent album. I don't know to add. It's a really product of 94. It's that one I can add. It's not bad. Don't age that bad. A lot of like industrial metal albums from 94. Can I say?
Right. What year did A Mind Is a Terrible Thing to Taste come out? Do you guys remember?
88, 87.
Okay, so that was kind of later. So in a weird way, Frontline was kind of getting around to the Ministry thing, but a few years later in a lot of ways.
But 94 was the year from Downward Spiral, so that was true. The years all that rock and metal industrial influence music began to explode.
Right.
So it's
Good
a
point.
really product of the time for me.
Right. That's a good point. That's a real good point, actually. Yeah, because you had the metal guitars kind of on the early Nine Inch Nails, and then the Downward Spiral was much more prominent, and that was the thing to be doing at the time, was to add sampling technology and live guitars into the thing. And now I didn't see him until the next year. I didn't see him until '95, which we're going to jump onto now.
Yeah,
For
and a lot of record happened with that kind of some
sound.
heavy sample influence at that time,
Yep.
because I was looking for other music that is not only metal. For example, DJ Shadow introducing one of the most famous sample albums of all time, and was '96. And a couple of years before was the second Beastie Boys album that have a lot of samples. Was one of the
That's
most
true.
famous sample albums of all time. And but this was like one of the most metal sample albums of that time. Maybe I don't
No,
know.
I think it is. Has to be up there for sure.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
mentioned, did you mention introducing DJ Shadow?
yeah,
Yeah, okay, yeah.
yeah.
Killer
I
album.
love that album, but it's
Killer album.
'96.
Yep, that was
Yeah.
96. That's a killer album. I love that one too. So let's move on to this one. And we're gonna jump on to my favorite. This is my personal favorite album. Probably why we
Great
use
album.
the artwork. This is the box set, which was limited to 5,000 copies. I got this in Philadelphia the day of the show, actually, when I went down to see them for the first time. This one, and this has this little story to it. It comes with this is a 5-inch CDR, which has 3 tracks on it. It's got it's got a remix of, hang on here, the remix of this Circuitry, the Alien mix. It's got Destructive Transformation and a previously unreleased song called Hydrogen on it. And as you can see, I got this and met Bill and Reese at Digital
Nice.
Fair in Philadelphia. They were playing the Trocadero. And you can see, this is 90. See where it says 96 up here? So Phil signed at 96. That's why he signed my stuff in 2018. 2018. There's Reese's signature down here. And then you can see Bill signed my copy of this in 2018, which I think is pretty badass. Again, This one is the box set, which is, I believe, fairly difficult to find. I don't think you can get it for under about $100 out there. So that's probably my most expensive frontline thing. And then they put one single out from the Circuitry.
Very cool.
And this was on Metropolis Records, by the way. The box set came out on SPV and Offbeat, a German label, but they had signed to Metropolis by this time. They left Roadrunner because they only did the one album for Roadrunner that was the full album, which was Millennium. This one comes with 3 mixes of Circuitry, the Predator mix, the Biosphere mix, do you remember Biosphere, Serge? Pierce Jensen, the Dark Ambient?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So he did a remix of this, which is really badass. And there's a non-album track called Epidemic, and then the Complexity remix by Howl Job, which is really, really killer. This album just gets the mix perfectly right for me. For me, this album has the guitar work on it that's killer on Barcode, on Circuitry. It's got the really, really cool, aggressive electronic stuff like Neologic Spasm. It's got the really cool atmospheric Synesthesia Delirium track, Mortal, which is the instrumental, which is really badass instrumental. Which I believe they opened the tour with that. Like they came out backlit, and then Mortal was playing in the background. It was just really haunting. Modus Operandi is a great. Barcode's a ripping metal track, and I love Infrared Combat. I love that song. It's very, almost kind of Tangerine Dreamish in a weird sort of way. That's by far my favorite album, and where I would tell anyone that was getting into Frontline, that's where I would tell them to start, either there, Tactical, or Millennium. Let me just do real quick here. There was a picture disc that came out of this in 2011 that was limited to 500 copies, but was missing 3 tracks. In 2015, there was a limited edition box set of vinyl that came out that was 300 that included a circuitry single. I think that's pretty much it. They used a lot of popular samples from movies on this, and I
Yeah,
love this album.
It's very sample heavy. I think it's their most
yeah. Reading
sample.
the samples and have a lot of sample in the Mouth of Madness, Life
Yep, in
Force,
Mouth Madness.
Stargate, the
Yep.
Puppet Masters,
Yeah, they
the
went
Crowd, Little Weapon. But fuck, it's really good. The use of
they
samples.
went
I
they went
love.
crazy on this, no doubt.
I use some FX Twin sample or at least Richard D. Yes, have
Yeah,
some
there's an Apex
uh,
Twins. Yeah.
yeah, some FX Twin stuff, and I love that.
I'm going to add one more thing to this, and I'll let you guys jump in.
Yeah.
The I should mention the Plasticity single that came out about 6 months after Hardwired came out, 5 months, somewhere in that range. This was written at the same time and was going to be included on the album. I think it's one of their absolute bomb ass tracks. Plasticity is such a driving, intense electronica. I would call it like a breakbeat sort of song. It just kicks
Mm-hmm.
ass. This also has a song on here that was not on the album called Replicant. And then there's a Plasticity remix, another Hal Job remix. Again, this was put out by Metropolis, and it was kind of in conjunction. They planned to do that Plasticity. So you guys want to talk about this album and the Plasticity single? Serge, go for it.
I think you covered all the main main things. Uh, I really like circuitry. I think one of the best guitar uses on there. Um, um, the instrumental track Mortal. Yeah, Infrared Combat is my favorite track on there. Very very cool, kind of melodic closer. Um, yeah, I think you covered everything else I had in my notes.
All right. What about Plasticity? Do you have that?
I don't have plasticity, no.
Oh,
Never run across it.
you should have that one, dude. That's a killer track. Mariano, what you got?
I feel it's a really great album. I think for me, this, how I say, those three records and this Hardwire is fucking amazing. I love that heavy use of sample. This is really in the Skinny Puppy school of sample. You
For
know,
sure.
there's that feeling that is fascinating to me. I don't know, because I don't know, it create a great atmosphere, and the cover art that from Dave McKean. I say it's a really dark album. I don't know. I feel it's a
Oh
really
yeah.
fucking great album. And to me, that's like, I feel that's the reason why I say is I'm not that big of a Frontline Assembly fan, because I feel those three albums were so great, and the next records are okay for me, but this is like a peak from the band to
Right.
me.
I wouldn't
I don't
disagree,
know.
although I wouldn't disagree,
No,
although
okay,
there's 2 more albums
okay.
I think coming that are pretty good. I wouldn't disagree with you though there.
I don't say are bad albums. I don't say are bad. I don't think are bad albums. I think
Right.
maybe I give those three records are so great that, and give me that, it's like a really creepy Skinny Puppy vibe in Sarge said, but in a more danceable way. That I don't know. I feel it were a really change of pace, you know. But no, I don't know. Are good albums, not bad. I don't say are
Right.
horrible.
Yeah, I think there's 2 more coming that are still where they're at their creative peak, and then they start to slide a little bit. They become
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they start
I
doing the
listen
same.
there. I listen those, and I feel I can't listen.
Gotcha.
I don't care anymore. But yeah, yeah.
Serge, do you have Livewire? Can you hold that up real quick?
Yep.
So this is 1996. They put out a 2 CD live, their first official real live album. Uh, I have the box set and I cannot find it anywhere. I did a major overhaul on my cleanup on my CD collection, and I put it in a box and I can't find it. It came in a long box with a VHS and a pin. The pin's like this really nice pewter pin that you could put on your jean jacket or whatever, and the VHS is, well, it's hard to watch.
I mean, look, it was not you know, I don't think they had access to great recording technology for
Right.
VOS.
Well, and also if you're in any way, shape, or form an epileptic, you should not watch that live show because
Well, that probably goes for
yeah.
any real industrial show. I mean, especially at the time.
It's all about risk.
But yeah, it was a 2 CD set that came out with the long box, and it had the VHS. I think they've reissued it now with a DVD. I do believe. I don't have that. I have the original one. Only thing to note on that is it was Bill Lieb, Reese Fulber, Adrian White on drums live. Also, Jed Simon, who was the other guitar player, and Strapping Young Lad was the live guitar player.
Adrian
Devin
White also played in King of Tion for a while.
Yeah, Devin did not ever play live with on any tour. Rather,
Yeah, I think he was a little busy with his many other projects.
I believe he may have played a gig in Vancouver, but he has never played live with the band. He never went out on tour with them. It was Jed Simon.
Yeah.
Jed, by the way, lives in Philadelphia. Really cool fucking dude. Great guitar player. We got to see Jed in 2018 at the Day of Darkness. He came down and played the Millennium and Hardwired song, which was really, really cool. Yeah, the video is not really watchable very well. I will say this is the first year I saw them. I saw them twice on this tour at the Trocadero, and then I saw them at TLA later, and they were fucking killer live. This is a very good live band. Yes, they have a lot of stuff on DAT tape that's not live. They have stuff that's being triggered by triggers for tracks. But the guitar was live, the drumming was live, the singing was live.
Yeah, this is a band I think you have to see live.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say that for every industrial band, but bands like Skinny Puppy and Frontline, you have to experience it live.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about Skinny Puppy live shortly because Serge and I went to see them. What year was that, Serge? 14?
Believe so. I actually have the shows we went to pulled up somewhere, so we'll get to them. But
yeah,
I think also Live Wire is a good way to experience the earlier songs with a slightly more updated sound.
I have no idea how much of it was manipulated in the studio and how much of it is live. At this point, who knows? You know what I mean? It's not like the old shows.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I don't care whether it's live or not. I'm just saying
right.
if some of the songs sound a little more as a live experience is a little harder.
Yeah. Now, let me pull these two things down. We're just going to mention them come on now. To mention them very quickly. In 1997, we have this first compilation comes out called Reclamation. And of course, because I, at that point in time, was a PT, or I'm sorry, not PT, FLA completist, of course, I had to have it. This has digital tension, dementia, contagion mix on it. It's got no limit, isolate, disintegration mix, virus, provision, the blade, the hybrid mix, heat wave, target, toxic, the progress mix, mind phaser, millennium, and surface pattern. So it's got basically all the singles that came out from all the albums that predate Hardwired. And frankly, I got to be honest with you, I probably played this one time. It's a Roadrunner comp, so they're just trying to make some money off of it.
Worth it just for the McKean cover.
Yeah, the McKean cover's cool.
Yeah.
Basically, this says, let's see. Actually, this gives a nice little history on the inside that I just looked at, and I wish I would have read that because it would have given me a better history of the band. But I'm not going to get into it right now. But kind of goes through all the iterations of where the band went from up through the Roadrunner years, which would have been through up till Hardwired, which would have been Millennium. So, a bunch of singles on here and some non-album remixes. Again, I haven't listened to that in years, and I couldn't really tell you what's on there other than just that. But let's go to. I'm going to move on from that and Livewired. We're going to go to this album, and this is where I kind of feel they did a pretty major change
Mhm.
in an about face in their direction they were doing.
From
They
the cover,
What's that?
from the cover, to me, it's like a sign of change to the band. You look
Yeah.
at we chameleon here, and you
Yep.
say, "What the fuck is this?"
Oh, very good, very
I
good. You picked up on that, yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird cover, but you understand why this alt cover is what it is.
Yeah. I gotta say, I fucking love this album. I absolutely love this album. When I listened to it yesterday, I was like, wow, I totally
It's
forgot
an
how good this
interesting
is.
album.
Now,
Can I say?
the thing that
Sorry.
we need to mention here that a big change happened here, though. And that is that Reese Fulber has left the band. Reese has gone to Los Angeles to start producing Fear Factory, Paradise Lost, all kinds of great bands. And John, you asked earlier about John Whitley, you asked about the Paradise Lost albums that Reese did. I love them. I love pretty much every Paradise Lost. So I think Reese is a fantastic production guy. And he became basically the fifth member and a touring member of Fear Factory. But enter Mr. Chris Corndog Peterson for this album. And it's called Flavor of the Week. Week, WEAK.
Gotta love the little the little pun with
The little
FLA.
puns they did, yeah. So this is the first to feature Chris Peterson, which again he had helped on the Tactical Neuro and Caustic Grip. He was part of the live group that did that, but basically he was the replacement for Reese Fulber. For me, this changes everything. They've dropped the guitar entirely. There's no guitars on here. They went to a super aggressive techno breakbeat style. There's all the IDM and
Drum and bass. I remember how to
drum
drum
and
bass.
bass. Yep, lots of drum and bass on it. There's a lot of hip hop samples that are used on here. There's even
Easy. Have a easy sample.
right.
Easy
They
for NWA.
really went for the samples. Let me finish what I had to say, and then we'll come around to each of you, as opposed to interrupting each other. So,
Sorry.
that's okay. Maybe there's a little bit of lag there, but just let me finish what I got, and then we'll come around to each of you and we'll get into it. So again, the hip hop samples, I didn't write any of them down. I didn't want to get that deep into it, but they also did a remix album, which I'm going to show here, called Rewind, that came out in '98. And I saw them on this tour, and they were fucking incredible. For me, the opening track, Corruption, is such a badass tune. It's so up tempo. I don't know what the beats per minute on that song are, but it's, I don't know, in a weird way, they added a lot of melodicism. There's no doubt about that. But Sadomasochist is great. Colombian Necktie is fucking awesome. And I really like the song Evil Playground. I think it kind of tails off a little bit with Comatose, Light Equals Lieben, and Predator. But again, this is their first major release for Metropolis after the live album. And I really fucking love this album. It's just such a right turn. Really good. You can tell they got a bigger budget for artwork too, because they're doing more with that. I don't have any idea how much this sold. I actually met Chris Peterson on this. He kind of scared me. The dude was like kind of menacing looking for some weird reason. I hear he's a cool guy, but he wasn't very chatty. He just sort of stood outside the Digital Ferret down in Philadelphia and smoked cigarettes. He didn't. I mean, he was jovial enough to say hello, but he wasn't super friendly.
He's the Gavin Harrison of Frontline.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Real quick on that before we get to Rewind and get to your take, guys. There were two singles that came out on this. One was for Colombian Necktie. Man, there's some great remixes on this, especially the the Goard mix by Tim Schultz on here. It's 7 minutes 40. This fucking remix of the song Colombian Necktie by Tim Schultz kicks goddamn ass. It is so good. All the remixes on here are really, really good. Again, it's got the Colombian Necktie Tongue Fed edit, a song called Deadlock, and another one called Electrocution, which were non-album tracks. They're fantastic. And then that Tim Schultz remix. And then this is for the song Comatose. There's the Valium remix, the Ketamine remix, an unreleased track called Oblivion, and then the Prozac mix, and they're all fucking kick-ass. So we'll talk about the rewind in a minute, but go ahead, Mariano. I'll let you chime in on this one here.
I don't know. I feel I have to listen again the album, but I think it's not bad. It's good. I feel some of the new influences can sometimes work and sometimes not work, but I don't know. The band was trying to experiment with this album, and I think it was okay. I don't know. I don't know how to say, what I have to say about this album. Maybe you have more experience with the album than me.
Right.
But it's a good album. I don't know. I feel I love all those elements that happen in the other albums, like the samples, the danceable feel, and sometimes the new influences work. I don't know, but to me it was a little hit and miss at the time when I heard it. But I have to listen again, maybe, and change my opinion. Happened a lot, no?
Okay, that's cool. That's fair enough. Serge, what you got?
So for me, I like the album. I don't love the album. I don't know. I think like that electro techno sound was a little too much for me. I think I like the more mid tempo frontline, personally. But there's definitely some cool songs on here. I mean, as I think you mentioned most of them. You know, Colombian Necktie, the fun track. My favorite track is actually Predator.
The last one.
Yeah. Which, again, I think kind of shows you my taste. The Rewind album actually has a really cool mix of Predator by Collide, which is another project I love. And, you know, Collide through female vocal, you know, from Karen on there, which is I thought like really worked pretty well. They also have a pretty cool, I think you mentioned the Tim Schultz remix of Evil Playground, which I think
so good.
is better than the original track. So,
oh my god, it kicks ass, dude. Yeah. Let's mention that. Do you have that one? You want to hold it up and show it?
Oh, Rewind.
Yeah, Rewind.
Yeah, this is really worn out because I played the crap out of it.
Yeah, so did I.
Car, so
yeah, this is Metropolis, and it's basically what they did was they did a complete remix of the album on disc 1. It's all remixed by Frontline. They do Predator, Aftermath, Electrocution, which is a non-album track.
Basically, like the first album, the first CD is their own remixes, and the second one is other people's remixes.
Right. So there's a couple different, like there's 2 different remixes of Comatose on here, a Colombian Necktie, Oblivion, and I like all the remixes. You know, they're pretty different. But then on side 2, you got Front 242 remix Comatose. You've got Predator by Collide, which you mentioned. That's a husband-wife duo, right? Or brother-sister.
Yeah, I mean, Karen Static, yeah.
Okay. And then you've got Evil Playground by Tim Schultz, which just is so goddamn killer. Life Leben is, I've never heard of them, Cult Furban. I don't remember that one off the top of my head. And then you've got Eat Static, which is the guys from, some of the guys from Osric Tentacles.
Yep, which is another interesting collaboration that you necessarily wouldn't expect. I mean, Eat Static is the more like electronic side project.
If I remember correctly, Colombian Necktie by Sidonia is a really good remix too. It's really up tempo.
Yeah.
And then Autoerotic by Finney Tribe. I don't really remember that one either. But what I kind of remembered about this one, and I didn't have time to really absorb all this, is that I liked this as much as I liked Flavor. I think there was some really killer work on this album.
Yeah, I would almost say I listened to Rewind more than Flavor.
Yeah, the only thing I'll kind of shit on flavor about and Rewind as well is that Phil's never been the greatest lyricist in the world, and there are some cheesebaggy lyrics on some of these songs. Some of them are good, and some of them are just kind of like cringy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I honestly I have paid attention to lyrics, especially when they're shouted through effects and I'm
Right.
terrible and picking up lyrics in general. So
Yeah.
sometimes lyrics will stick with me, but for the most part, I would have to actually read them.
Right.
Yeah, it's a difficult task, the aspect of the lyrics. A lot of these kind of bands, but maybe because Skinny Puppy have some great lyrics, I feel that's like a challenge for a band like Frontline Assembly. I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel I pay some attention to the Skinny Puppy lyrics, and really good shit. I feel it's really dark stuff, but really interesting stuff, and I don't know, for a band that tried really hard to make really industrial, kind of dark, kind of danceable stuff, you think gonna take a little more risk with the lyrics. But well, it's what happens.
Yeah, I think Bill hits it on. He's hit and miss as far as I'm concerned. Some of the stuff is pretty intense and pretty deep and good, and then some of the stuff is just kind of cheesy. I kind of
But
like
you
the
can say that about a lot of people, right? Like it's
Sure,
very hard to write consistently great lyrics. It's hard.
it
So.
is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
we
not
have
an easy task.
definitely Steven Wilson. He's one of our guys, and I've always thought some of his stuff is brilliant, and some of it's kind of really not very good at all. Um, okay, so next up we've got this, which I'm just going to show quick. It's Cryogenic Studios, which was a kind of a sampler album. It's got two unreleased Equinox songs, or no, two released Equinox songs. It's got two unreleased Frontline songs, one called Equilibrium and one called Transmutation. It's got
Mm.
two released Delirium tracks, a re-released Protect song, two released Protect songs, and one unreleased Synesthesia songs. And you may ask, well, who are those bands? Synesthesia is a side. It was a side project of Reese and Bill. It was kind of their Tangerine Dream dark ambient thing.
Mhm.
Protect was the real clubby, kind of almost club version of Frontline, which everything was very super danceable, breakbeaty stuff. And then Equinox was kind of a mix of all those. And Delirium obviously is the one that made them a lot of money. That was kind of their new agey world music, sort of. Early on, it was very dark ambient, but then it became much more female singer fronted, more danceable. Serge, what do you add on Delirium? Quick, make it fast.
Yeah, well, like you said, it went from like weird, like dark, kind of creepy, ambient slash like I don't know. I guess with almost tribal elements at times. To
Here's
uh,
Protest.
had a middle phase of more just kind of electronica, a very cool electronica, and then it went into
New,
female vocals mixed with almost kind of like a new agey sound.
yeah. So here's the Equinox album. It's him and Chris Peterson, I believe,
Mm.
which is very breakbeaty, very drum and bass. Probably my least favorite of theirs, but I just thought I'd show you guys because it's here, and that was put out
Mm.
on Hypnotic. And then I have Protech, which is also him and Chris Peterson, another side project. And then the Delirium stuff or intermix is kind of their. If you guys remember Deep Forest, this is kind of their Deep Forest ripoff album in a way. Intermix was the project that mixed in all the chanting and the
Yeah,
Gregorian choirs
taking
and
the
all that.
tribal parts,
Tribal, yeah.
but even more so. But
And
still very, very listenable.
yeah, very listenable. This is Reese and Bill. This is 1999. And then Synesthesia, here are the three Synesthesia albums, real quick. Ephemeral, Desideratum, which is a double disc, which is really cool. And
Mhm.
what's this one called? Embody, I think.
Yeah, embody it.
And these are super cool if you want to put on chill, synthy, long songs that are spacey and kind of trippy, dark ambient stuff like that. And then there's Noise Unit, which I don't even know what to say about Noise Unit. You want to talk about them quick?
Yeah, Noise Unit probably varies the most outside of Delirium between like albums because Drill is my favorite. Drill is probably one of their more industrial notes.
And this
Some
is
really like
this is
heavier. What was that?
this is Reese and Bill.
Yeah.
And let me see, was there anybody else involved in this one? Mark Verhagen was also involved in this very early one right here. I don't have the two latest ones, and I
Well,
don't have the one grinding. Do I have grinding?
they're
Grinding
just
and emptiness.
they're putting out a new one I think now because
I
they
have
released a
some
single
connection issue,
just now.
Okay.
but maybe it's me. I have connection issue, but I live in Argentina. This things that happen. Yeah. What the fuck?
We're kind of losing you.
We're losing you, Mariana.
Oh, it's
Are you
okay.
there?
It's okay.
Okay.
Okay, no, I have some connection, not connection. Sorry, it's things that happen here.
You're okay. You're right. Go ahead.
Well, continue.
You're not.
Talking
Yeah, go
about
ahead.
noise units.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think he's just passing back to you, Jeff.
Oh. Okay. Well, so Noise Unit.
No,
Those are the ones I did not go back and
yeah.
listen to for quite a while. So I don't really. I'm not gonna say anything about it. I think Serge knows better about them than I do because it's been a while since I've checked those out. I do recall they kind of vary a lot. Some are dark and synthy, and some of them are much more industrial sounding. But that's
It's
the
more
part.
like just I feel it's probably the closest to just instrumental frontline.
Okay, they don't
Yeah.
do much vocals on there, right?
No samples, but no vocals. At
Okay.
least that I remember.
And one other.
I heard the first noise unit. I think it's really good. Bringing into emptiness. I feel it's really classic IBM. You know,
Right.
it's really good.
Well, that's the only one I don't have, so I can't really uh, give you any opinion on grinding.
Do you hear Decree?
Yes, I have. I've heard Decree. Yep, it's very similar to that. Yeah.
It's really dark. It's really heavy. I fucking
Yep.
love that band. I don't know a lot of the side project Frontline, but that band is fucking amazing.
There was also another project here that Bill did real quick with. I want to say it was Kevin Key and Dwayne Gotel, which is called Cyber Active. I believe did they only do the single, or did they do an actual album?
Don't remember.
I can't recall, but
I don't have that one.
Dwayne was the guy that overdosed on heroin right around the process, and Kevin Key is one of the two main guys in Skinny Puppy. This song's called "Nothing Stays." It's danceable. It's a good song. It's on Wax Tracks. I swear they did an album, but I could be wrong. Maybe
they put an album in '91.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I don't.
It's
have
called
the album.
Tenebre Visions. It's called. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I heard that album, but it's not. I feel it's not that interesting to me. At least I don't know. I heard it
and then real quick, I'll just show some Delirium quick because I have most of the Delirium on. I have to change my lighting source around. Sorry about that, guys. Here are some singles from some of the albums. These were from, I believe, Duende and what's this one from? This is Innocente. That's from the Koran album, right? Or no, that was from Poem. I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
This is before they became the easy listening Delirium. This was the last thing that they did that was pretty haunting and weird. This is a Third Mind release called Euphoric. It has a track Euphoric, Decade, Grave, Mentor, and Sorrow. This is very dark ambient, kind of haunting. They throw some samples in on this. This one's kind of hard to find from what I recall. But here's Poem. That's the last album I bought from them. they just got too lightweight for me.
It got very, very poppy.
Very poppy.
You missed that kind of the darker underside that was there for
Right. Which the darker underside is this album, which is really, really amazing. Karma, it's got, I mean, they started getting more dancier, but they had great tracks on here like Forgotten Worlds and Lamentation and Koran and Till the End of Time. There were great instrumentals on this album, along with the singles that, had like Kirsty Thirsk and Sarah McLachlan. This is a beautiful album. I would never say don't listen to this album, but it's the last one of theirs that I really, really enjoy. And I know this is a favorite of yours.
Yeah, this is one of my like top albums of all time, honestly.
And this is all Kirsty Thirsk, I believe, right?
There's only 2 songs of vocals on there, so yeah, it could be just her on both. But
yeah, this is through Network. This is a beautiful album. It's very tangerine dreamy and very dark ambient, but it's beautiful, man. It's really haunting. And then the early stuff, I only have like this, which is called Reflections 2. It's got songs from all the different periods of the first 6 albums. I believe it's 6, right?
7, I think. 7. So real quick note on that is Metropolis is re-releasing the first 7 albums in March. 7. So you can pre-order them.
This one's out on Dossier. It's the greatest hits. I mean, Bill was pretty infamous for licensing his shit out to get, advances and stuff like that. And then the first 4 albums came out on Network. They reissued these 2 CD sets of, they're not complete, but they're most of the albums. It's got stuff from Spiritual Archives, Spheres 2, Cryogenic Studios, Faces, Forms, and Illusions, Morpheus, Syrophenicon, and Stone Towers. So this is very, very cool, dark ambient. It's all pretty good. A lot of monks chanting, a lot of haunting sounds and whatnot. So that's all we're going to do. That's all we're going to talk about them, because we'd be here for 6 or 7 hours talking about that if we go on to that. So let's get back to Frontline here. We're going to get to 1998, one last comp to talk about. Monument. This came out on Roadrunner. It's their last gasp to wring every dime they can out of Frontline. This has Big Money Remix, Vexation, Provo Mix, Mental Distortion, Overkill, Virus, A Different Mix, Mutilate, Trans Time, Reanimate, Laughing Pain, The Blade, and Monument. Again, Roadrunner cashing in on all those early albums, because what happened was Roadrunner bought all the rights to Third Mind Records, and Third Mind owned most of this stuff. So of course Roadrunner's like, hey, let's do some reissues and make a few dollars off this stuff. So, and of course,
it was the time that continue. When I say it was the time that Roadrunner exploded all their classic bands and put a lot of best of albums. None of the bands that put those best of have royalties for those albums. I remember. That was a really shitty attitude of Roadrunner at the time.
The bands didn't get any money from any of that. They were just, that was just a record.
Yeah, it's over exploitative from Roadrunner at the time.
Yeah. All right, let's see what do I got here. We're moving on to 1999, and this album here. And I apologize. I'm going to turn my light up a little bit so I can be seen a little better. Give me 1 sec here, guys.
I'll just put it up because this is my favorite
interesting cover art.
This is it's a fantastic McKean cover. Very, and you got to show the back.
Look more like claymation than the typical Dave McKean art, but it's really good.
Yeah, killer art. They put 2 singles out for this. Prophecy was the first one. Another great piece of artwork. The back with the skin crawling, kind of like that episode from the X-Files where the worms are crawling under the dog skin and the human skin. I think that's probably where that came from. And then Fatalist, which, Serge, I'm about 90% sure this was the shirt I was wearing when you saw me.
I mean, very possible. Yeah. I mean, seems right for the time.
Yep, would have been 99. That's the year that we met. And, this one's great. I love this inside of this, the Fatalist cover. And
it's a little like a Dream Theater.
Yeah, very much. This one has 6 songs on it. Fatalist, which is remixed by Reese Fulber, actually, and Mike Plotnikoff. Also, a song called Retribution, Front 2-4 remix. Deception by Greg Reilly remix. Fatalist by Aqualight remix. Prophecy by Haljob. And Tribal Techno remix of Fatalist. And then the Prophecy was remixed by a Radio 1 edit, Y2K 1000 mix, which is like almost an 8-minute remix, and then a non-album track called Paralysis. This is kind of, for me, the last really great Frontline when they were kind of at their apex, that 5-album sequence from Tactical Neuro through this. I really like this album. Prophecy's a great song. Retribution, Fatalist is great. Synthetic Forms is really cool. It's almost like a dubstep track. Unknown Dreams is very, very Tangerine dreamy and almost like kind of dubsteppy, and it's very mixed. This album has a lot of. They brought the guitar backs. Jed Simon is playing on this one. I like this album quite a bit. Again, it's probably the last, for me, great Frontline Assembly album that I went to see them, and I went to see them twice. I saw them once at Trocadero, but the second one that I went to see at TLA, the DAT did not work, and they had to cancel the show. They came out on stage in darkness and nothing. For 10 minutes, they kept trying to figure out how to get the show going, and the show just wasn't going. And then Bill came out. I think whether it was Bill or Adrian, the drummer, came out, and he's like, "Hey guys, we can't do the show. Our DAT's down and our backup DAT's not working." So somebody's laptop wasn't working, and it kind of pissed me off. I never got my money back for that show that I recall, but we didn't get
You
to see
told
him.
Bill about it.
What's that?
Did you tell Bill about that one?
I didn't. No, I didn't say anything to him when I saw him in 2018. Let me just look over my notes real quick. Yeah, that was the first canceled show. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Again, there's Corn Dogs on the tour. That's the one I met. That's the one I met Chris Corn Dog on. So go ahead, Serge. What do you got on that one?
So, again, this is by far my favorite Frontline album. I don't know. Maybe it's because I think it was, I got it and then I saw them live. So, because I saw them on that Implosion tour, so it all kind of clicked. But I think that's when they really embraced their, that their like cinematic approach from that era, which I think you see for the next 3 albums or so. Just from the opening track where it's already like setting up. I don't know. It really catches your attention, in my opinion. Prophecy is my favorite song by Frontline.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, especially live. I mean, they do a great version of it live. Synthetic Forms, just great track. I love like the cool things, like in Synthetic Forms. There's a sample that says "This place is a tomb."
Yeah.
And then the tomb starts repeating, and it just transforms into a sound from the T. It's just the way that's done is
so cool.
Cool.
So cool. I agree.
I love when they do that, like that just interesting shit that really catches your attention. Don't Trust Anyone, Unknown Dream, Silent Ceremony. I don't know. Great album for me. I absolutely love this album. On the Fatalist single, the Reese remix, which again, this is a Lee Peterson album, but it's not like Lee was always friends with Reese, so he kind of came in, he went and came back, but when he had time, I guess, so he had a Reese remix Fatalist, and it's a great remix.
Yeah, it is. Yep. Hey, Alan, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for joining in. I get it. Yeah, it's techno industrial, probably not your thing. But hang out a little bit. You might learn something. Mariano, what do you have any thoughts on this album?
Like the other album, I'm gonna say it's okay. I'm gonna say I like a lot more this album a little more than the other one. I like that. I don't know that experimentation with other sounds. For example, more that kind of trip hop influence.
Yeah, there is a
I
little
don't
bit of
know.
that. Yep.
I feel it's a good album. I don't know. I feel the band was in a good set of mind at the time, and it's an interesting album, you know. So I wanna say for the last great Skinny Puppy album, I wanna say it's a good finish of symbolic finish of the good match of Skinny Puppy albums. I don't know.
I'm not sure what you
It's a
mean by
shame.
Skinny Puppy
Yeah, I'm not
album.
sure what you mean by. You keep
Sorry, but I
you keep bringing
confused from
Skinny
Frontline
Puppy.
Assembly
Oh,
albums.
Frontline Assembly.
My
Okay.
mind is in other side. Sorry, when I pronounce.
Say, I mean,
It's a problem. It's a problem to have to speak in English that is not
Okay.
my first language.
Okay,
Sorry.
I got you. I got you.
Well,
you
no,
kept
it's
saying-
a good range for Frontline Assembly, you know,
Right,
for me.
okay.
Because a lot of bands start to suck until 2-3 albums. This is okay
True.
for bands Frontline Assembly to build their legacy for those albums. So I don't have complaints. I don't have complaints.
I think we are gonna hopefully do a Skinny Puppy episode. Maybe we'll do that one next. So I'll have to have you on for that because we'll have to have you on for that one because you'll be all over the Skinny Puppy. But I do feel Skinny Puppy was there a little before Frontline, so they're a little bit more of an innovator in the field. But I do think that these two bands were they were neck and neck for quite a while. I never sensed there was much of a competition between them because I think Puppy was always just a little bit more respected. But I think Bill's good friends with those guys, so I don't think there was. And they're Canadians. Canadians don't argue.
I think it's not like I mean, I don't think it's like a Beatles, Rolling Stones kind of thing.
Right.
Even though I mean they had common origins, I think they're different bands musically, and which is cool, right? I think they evolve differently, and I enjoy them both.
Yeah. I don't think because all those bands were connected, you know. The USS scene, with the Canadian scene were really connected. So never was a competition. Never happened with those kind of bands.
Yeah, I don't think it did either. I think those guys, and that's kind of seen in a couple more years. Serge and I went to actually see Frontline open for Puppy in 2014, and it seemed like it was I was one of the best shows I've ever seen.
One of the loudest.
What's that?
One of the loudest too.
Oh my god, yeah. Hang on, guys. I gotta sort my fucking lighting issue
I want
out.
really hard to see at least one time to a Skinny Puppy. I don't think I'm gonna see in Argentina. You know, I'm gonna see
Probably
maybe
not.
if I went to another country because Argentina have a really weird tradition with touring bands from more dark bands that like Skinny Puppy or Frontline Assembly or those kind of bands. Ministry came and it was not that I don't know that important. I don't know for Argentinian public, the Argentinian audience, you know. But I don't know. It's possible. I saw Neurosis here.
Oh, nice.
I never thought I gonna see Neurosis.
I think,
and I saw Neurosis here.
Metal bands maybe hit South America a little bit more than industrial.
I think they can make more money. The metal bands can make money.
Thank you.
Industrial bands, it would be a tough sell to make money down there. But
no, maybe really little bands.
I've only actually seen Skinny Puppy one time. I don't recall them touring the States endlessly. I don't think they go out endlessly. And I don't.
Yeah, I mean, not like all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump back into the catalog because we're getting sort of near the end. So the next one is 2001's Epitaph. And this is the Digipack version, which I hear has a bonus track on it. I got to be honest with you. If it did, I didn't realize it. I will say at this point in time, I'm starting to lose a little bit of my juice on Frontline. I like them. They're still one of my favorite bands, but I'm starting to feel like maybe they are getting a little bit formulaic. Now, the one thing to add for Epitaph is Chris Peterson's still in tow, Reese is still out. This is the first Frontline Assembly album with 0 samples on it. There's also no guitar on it at all.
Bad sign. Bad sign.
Yeah. What's that?
And the cover sucks.
I don't think
Fucking
Flavor
sucks.
had any samples.
Flavor?
I don't think so.
Sure, it did. It had samples, all kinds of rap samples all over the place.
Oh, sorry, movie samples, I guess.
Yeah. No, this is no samples whatsoever.
Okay, yeah.
They started, in my opinion, on this album, I started to hear a real distinct mixture of Frontline and Delirium. Really distinct. And there's no guitar on this one. They're kind of back to the Flavor with the Delirium influence. And I think for me, Everything Must Perish is a great tune. Dead Planet is a really good tune. I like that vocoder deal they do on there. Haloed is very good. And Epitaph. But I don't have a lot of thoughts on this one. How about you, sir?
To me, this is like Implode Part 2. I feel like it continues very well from there. And I don't know. I this is one of my favorite albums by them. Yeah, that whole like second half of Everything Must Perish, Conscious, Decoy, Insolence, Crank It Up. Such a great like set of consecutive songs to me.
Yeah, those are good.
So I don't know.
But do you hear the Delirium?
Of course, but to me that's not a bad thing. Like again, I kind of love that melodic mid-tempo Frontline. It's just with enough of a darker semi-industrial feel, but to me I love that sound. I love that feel. So this worked great for me.
Mariana, do you have any thoughts on this one?
I feel from the cover art, I feel it's one of the most ugly Dave McKean arts. I feel, I don't know.
It's supposed to be a heart,
I remember
right?
like what?
It's supposed to be a heart. It looks like, right?
Yeah, but I feel it's really uninspired for the Dave McKean.
I don't know. I
It's
love
not
it.
that. I don't know. I don't like that cover art, but I don't know how. I remember have like 4 free songs that I like it, and the rest was not my thing.
Right.
I feel one aspect that the music that I really like was the samples, and it was not there. I don't know. I feel this is the start of the decline of my interest in, at least from Line Assembly like a band.
Yeah,
I feel
it probably started mine
not
as
interesting.
well.
I don't know. I feel it's not interesting. It's not an interesting album.
That's cool.
I don't know.
That's cool. I still like that one, but I think it was the next one that really was the jarring one for me. And the next one being 2004 Civilization. This sees the return of Reese Fulber, and I believe Chris leaves, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And this album adds some, it has Jamie Mober on keyboards and vocals. It's got Leah Randy on vocals, Sean Aspie on
And
guitars.
bass.
Pardon me?
And bass.
Okay.
Leah Randy, she played bass on one of the tracks.
Right. So, to be
Yes,
honest
it's Christian
with you,
too.
to be honest, and Christian All Wolvers played guitar on one from Fear Factory. To be honest with you, this is the album where I was like, okay, I don't see any difference between, or not much difference between Frontline and Delirium at this point. That album, Civilization, sounds very much like a Delirium album to me. And I didn't spend a lot of time on it this time around listening to it, but I was not blown away with it. And that's the first time I bought that one. But after this, someone sent me CDRs of the next 2, and that's when I finally kind of checked out on everything. So I like the album. There's a couple good tracks. It sounds very soundtracky to me. I like Maniacal. I like Parasite. what's it called? Vanished.
Yeah, I love Vanished.
Yeah,
Again,
Vanished.
I
Vanished is
love that
cool.
the female vocals on it. I mean, again, sure, it's definitely Frontline meets Delirium, but again, to me,
Dissident's pretty
there's nothing
cool.
wrong with that.
But see, here's where I stopped buying their albums at this point. I was getting back into death metal, and I started to get into heavier shit. I enjoy the album, but it's more like background music to me, which FLA was never background music to me before, and it started to sort of feel that way on this album.
I get it. I mean, it's definitely it's definitely probably their of the like the proper albums, probably their like least heavy, I guess.
Right.
The only heavy moment's probably on that like little instrumental track, Strategic, um, or more industrial moment. Um, but I don't. Again, to me, this is like the end of the Implode era.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it quite as much as the previous two albums, but I do like I do like some tracks on here. Fragmented Dissident. Again, it's very kind of laid back a little bit for them.
Yeah, it's I I don't want to shit all over it because I'm not shitting on it. It's still very good music. It's still very listenable, but it's kind of watered down FLA for me. And that's what's interesting about that is that I went to see them the next tour. I went to see them live for either Artificial Soldier or IED. I forget which one it was. I went to see them again, and they were great live. They were really fantastic live. Did we go to see one of those two? Serge,
Um,
was it?
I don't
Or did we go to
think
both of them?
so. Not because I'm looking at like my the history of shows. I don't think I saw them for a while until 2011.
I
Um,
saw him with John Comiskey. I don't know. Maybe you didn't make it to that Trocadero show. I think it was Artificial Soldier or IED. I forget which one it was.
think I saw them. Wait, maybe I just didn't pull that one up.
2011 would be IED, wasn't it?
I think 2014 is when I saw him at the Troc.
That's you and me. That's when we went with Tristan to see with Skinny. Okay, so you weren't at the 2011 show then. I know I went with John to that one. And
No, 2011 I did go. I just mean I don't think until 2011 I don't think I went because
okay. Well,
we're in Civilization era, which is only 2004. So
right. No, I didn't see him on that one. I know I didn't see him on that one.
yeah, 2011 is when I saw them.
So you were at that one with me then.
I think 2011 is when I saw them at was it Highline?
Is that when Conjure One opened?
Maybe.
Because I remember Reese came on the tour and did double duty.
So.
He did Conjure One with that girl. What's that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't know, man. Civilization is just where I kind of started to fall off the train. I started to feel like there wasn't anything really differentiating them from Delirium really that well. And not that I didn't, because I like Delirium, but I wasn't mind blown with it. You know what I mean? And I just felt like maybe that wasn't the way to go. We might have lost Mariano. So you want to move on to Artificial Soldier? Do you have that one?
Yeah.
Mariano, I lost you. I don't know if your connection dropped or.
All right, so Artificial Soldier 2006 now. So I think this was kind of a transition album where, they're not sure which direction to go to at this point.
Well, it's also the first one where they featured a 5-piece lineup because they brought.
Yeah. So this, interestingly enough, this is where they all kind of like you have all three of the core people: Lee Fulber, Peterson, and also Jeremy Inkle was on this one.
Right, Jared Slingerland, the guitar player.
Did he play on this one? Yeah. He played on one track, and Adrian White played on another track. So, Dissension is a good track for me. Dopamine is a fun one.
Yeah,
Again, I newer era Frontline. I understand that some people may have checked out if they're really into like the the pre-implode era.
right.
I don't it's not my favorite album, but I'd put it in in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, I think for me, this album has a couple really good tracks. Unleashed, Dissension is really good. The track wait a minute, where is it? The one with Luke Meyer on it from Front 242. The
Oh
one.
right, which by the way they redid on the newest album.
Oh, did they?
Yes, Barbarians. Yeah.
Barbarian. Well, that's not called Barbarian, but
No, but it is on the new one.
oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
They changed the
That's a
name.
great song. I love that chorus to that. Hail the
Yeah,
Barbarians.
yeah.
Um,
They kind of slowed it down and kind of reworked it a little bit.
right. So they added in a lot more guitars. The guitars come racing back into the picture. There are a lot of heavy guitars on it. They, I think, again, Jeremy Inkle brings some fresh blood into it with some of the programming. You got Chris on board here. You got Reese providing some interesting stuff. And the thing that I think I started to notice with this album in particular going forward, and that is for the next three albums, because I've not listened to the last two, so I hope you can throw a little bit on that, Serge. I just didn't get to them, and I wasn't that interested in them. What I noticed in the last three albums: Artificial Soldier, IED. What's the next? What's the one after that called?
Echogenetic.
Airmech, Echogenetic.
Well, Airmech and
Airmech.
Warmech are game
Yeah,
soundtracks.
that's
So.
the game soundtrack. Echogenetic, and then what's it
We
called?
have the coma.
Wake the Coma,
Wake
and
up the
Mechanical
call.
Soul.
Mechanical Soul.
What I started noticing was that they were becoming a bit formulaic in their songwriting. I started to notice that everything, there was that song that was the high energy two or three songs, there was the low energy two or three songs, there was a one or two delirium tracks, and I just started noticing it was like this is starting to sound very samey to me. I do like the songs Dopamine, Dissension, Unleashed, and Future. What's that called? Future something? That's the one with Jean Luc. Future Foil?
Yeah, Future Fail. Future. What the hell is it? Future Fail. Yeah.
Fail. That's it. Future Fail. I like that one a lot. Again, there's breakbeat and IDM in here. I hear a bit of TNI in the choruses. The guitars are there's heavy guitars in thrown for good measure. It feels a bit formulaic. One key thing is the aggressive verses and melodic choruses. They have aggressive, intense verses, and then it throttles it back for the choruses, which are earworm choruses. Again, that sort of sounded formulaic to me. So that's my take on Artificial Soldier. I don't know if anybody else want to throw anything else out there.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue what you said, but it doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. You know what I mean?
That's cool. Yeah, it's again the same thing for me. Is it's not that I don't like them; it's just that they're not critical albums for me to listen to anymore. Like Tactical Neural or Millennium or Hardwired or even um, you know even Caustic a little bit or Implode or Rewind or Flavor. Those were the ones that really galvanized me as a fan. So, all right, so we move on to 2010 and IED. You have that one, Serge?
Yep. Let's see. That should put these in chronological order, but so here's ID. Hopefully, you can see that.
I remember listening to that album. Maybe it was the last Frontline Assembly album that I listened.
So more guitar on this one.
A lot of guitar.
Yeah, but it's not quite
How
as
short is in the record?
a little. I think it. approached a little better than Millennium, where it's not quite a complete rip-off job of his samples and stuff.
Right.
Um, you know, um, uh, you know, L from Ministry, L Jorgensen.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
he
right.
sang for Stupidity, and obviously that's no surprise in that that's the most Ministry sounding track. Certainly, the guitars sound like it. Um,
But
they had a couple of guitar players, Slingerland and Justin Hagberg from
Yeah.
the Blood.
The guy from 3 Inches Blood, I think.
Yeah, which I don't personally know. I don't know if you
Yeah, I
do.
don't either.
Angriff is a fun track to me. Attack
Yeah.
the Masses, Release. Um, um, some compared to our previous few albums, I think you have some faster tracks, higher BPM tracks for a change, like Shifting Through the Lens, which
Mm.
I think they play live occasionally, and then some kind of a couple of tracks that are more like their previous albums with Afterlife and Downfall.
Yeah,
Uh,
Afterlife's interesting. That's about Bill's dad, right?
I don't. Yeah, I mean that's very
Yeah,
possible. I didn't know
he
that.
he hadn't had any contact with his dad for about 20 years and finally reconnected with him around this album. And his dad died of leukemia like 7 months after they reconnected.
No,
So
no.
that song's the first song I ever heard an acoustic guitar on a Frontline album with. I think another key thing to mention on this is that you got Lieb, you got Peterson, you got Slingerland and Inkle, and all four of them wrote on this album. It was a very combined effort as far as the writing, and you can
Right.
kind of hear it. While I still feel there's a lot of template boilerplate songs that remind me of earlier FLA, you can tell there's more going on here. I will say
Mhm.
the one thing I do think that kind of works against this album is that some of these songs are just too long. They Some of these songs are like almost every song is like almost 6.5, 7, 8 minutes long, which I find I don't know. They're just long. They just sound long to me,
Well,
and they sound interchangeable. A lot of them sound interchangeable to me. Um,
Yeah,
it's a good mix of
I
techno,
agree. Yeah.
breakbeat, heavy guitar.
yeah, I think it's a good mix of their different styles.
Yeah.
I think it's a little less formulaic than say like Civilization was.
And this is the last one I have an actual FLA copy of an album. I don't have anything going forward. It's not that I dislike them. It's just I kind of bailed. I was moving on to other things, and I just didn't go there. Like with Skinny Puppy, all the early classic Skinny Puppy I don't have any of the last 3 or 4 Skinny Puppy albums. They just didn't interest me much. I thought they kind of had petered out a bit with what they had to say. But
Which
give
is
me,
I don't know. I again that's a different take for me. I love their recent albums
do
as
you?
well. Yeah, I don't know.
Mhm.
Maybe it doesn't bother me when bands do different things, or maybe
No, that's
same
cool.
things with people. But
But it may just be too that I didn't give them enough time. You know what I mean? I may have just been sort of listening with half an ear and listening to other shit because, the death metal stuff and the black metal stuff that I got into started to drag me in that direction. And I probably just didn't give the newer FLA and the newer Puppy as much time as I used to. So do you have Fallout, Serge?
um, yeah, I was gonna say we did kind of skip this.
Oh,
I
go
actually
ahead.
completely forgot about
Okay,
this
next.
one, and I didn't listen to this recently for to review it. So I don't know if I can comment on this.
Is that the
Uh,
remix of
yeah,
IED?
it's a remix of Artificial Soldier Era.
Oh,
It does have a couple of tracks like Electric Dreams and Armageddon. They're just non-album tracks, and I think Unconscious. But I did I did only just find it, so I didn't
what's
review
that one called?
it.
Fallout?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Says in odds and ends, there's 3 unreleased tracks on there. Odds and ends from Artificial Soldier. Uh, yeah, I that's all I got on that. So, do you have the Air Mech thing?
I don't. So I guess real quick on that. I don't have the physical albums, but so
Okay.
we did two. And the two game soundtracks. It's like a helicopter war game. Um, and they did a sequel, so it's called Air Mech, and War Mech was the second one. And they're fantastic soundtracks, actually. This is obviously more background music by design because you're playing a game. But I love listening to it when I'm like working on photography or, editing photos or something else. Um, so for that kind of music, I definitely recommend checking it out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
the
not.
Quake 3 is not bad.
Go
The
ahead.
Quake 3 soundtrack is not bad, I remember.
Yeah,
No,
they did do some music for Quake 3, which I don't have, so I've never actually heard that part.
yeah, I remember I like that soundtrack. I never remember that was from Frontline Assembly, but I like it.
Yeah, I've not checked any of the. I've not checked any of the video game stuff out, so I have absolutely no idea what it sounds like. The last one I listened to was Echo Genetic. That's the last album I listened to. Do you have that one, Serge?
I couldn't find my physical copy,
Ah,
so
bummer.
I'm, when I kind of put reorganized my whole collection, there are a couple of things that went missing, and which annoys the hell out of me, but I just don't know where they are.
Well, what I took from this was Reese returned again. So he left after Civilization. Well, he was alive and involved in Artificial Soldier, but he was not on the last one. Um, Chris Peterson leaves, and I believe that's his last album. That was the last Chris Peterson album, I believe.
Mm.
The one before, right?
Yeah, so Echogenetic was just Lieb, Enkel, and Slingerland.
Right. Yep.
So no Reese or Peterson. Um,
No, Reese played live with them though on this tour.
oh yeah, I mean
Yeah.
he
And from what I see, this is mostly all electronic again.
yeah.
Uh,
This
Jeremy
is
Inkle,
pure electronic, really.
yeah,
Um, this is
Jeremy,
this was their dubstep album.
okay,
This is one dub. This is the era. And again, as we've stated before, Bill likes to pick up on some trends, um, and I think he dug into the dubstep trend. You very obviously hear it on a lot of the songs,
Mm.
which again is good or bad depending on um, how you feel about dubstep. Obviously, dubstep was probably overdone at some point. Um, I actually would
Mm.
have gone to New York dubstep raves. So I can't say I don't like that that kind of music. I think it's fun sometimes. Um,
Mhm.
I think it even there's some cool stuff on this album. I think right away it opens with Resonance, which is kind of cool. Killing Grounds is a cool dance floor track. Also Deadened.
Mhm.
Um, and the title track is I think is just a cool take on dubstep with kind of frontline flavor. And
it
then
Mm.
should be.
EXO is a cool melodic track for me.
Yeah, I saw him on this tour at the TLA, but I don't have this album. I did listen to it. I think I saw him in 2014 for this. But wait a minute, is this the one that they? This is the one they. Yeah, this is the one they opened for Puppy, right?
I believe so. Yeah,
Yeah,
when they did the 2014 tour. Yeah,
yeah. That's the one they. This
Yeah,
is the one.
these
Um, I think that it should also be noted that I believe this was the last appearance of Jeremy Inkle because he died in 2018 at a very young age,
yeah.
30 like
Unfortunately,
38 from like
I mean,
asthma.
Wake
Something.
Up Tacoma does have some of his contributions, but
Oh,
yeah,
does it?
yeah.
mm.
Um, so after that, and I will say that tour that we
And that
caught
tour,
them.
they mostly played older stuff.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
looking at the
Because
set list, and it's it's neurological spasm, killing grounds, exhale, blood, plasticity, mental distortion, liquid separation, millennium prophecy. So a lot of older tracks.
right, and
Um,
it was great, man. I mean, it was Hal Job. Did Hal Job open?
I don't think so.
Oh, it was Hal Job.
No, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry.
Okay, I thought so. It was just a guy with a synth and a guy with a drum machine. Remember? It was
And
kind of
you've,
weird.
which by the way, you've code also has some cross pollination with Frontline, but
Right. And I will say Frontline was great. They were fantastic, but man, Skinny Puppy blew my fucking mind. They were so good.
yeah,
Um, they were just so good. And remember how crowded it was, dude? Like you
yeah.
couldn't even fucking move. It was
But
had to
that's
be.
again, Skinny Puppy was touring with one of the quote unquote newer albums,
Yeah.
so I don't.
Yeah, I forget what tour that was for Puppy. Was that for a greater
I think it was Greater Honor, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
Which again, I like that album, and I thought did well live. So
So 2014, Frontline puts out Echoes, which is a remix of the Echo Genetic album. I never
which
checked it out.
yeah, I think that's a cool way to check out that era if maybe you want to hear slightly less dubstep because there's some slightly different interpretations.
Okay.
Uh, you know,
Worthwhile then.
yeah, I don't know, I liked it.
And then in 2018, they put out War Mech, which is a continuation of the Air Mech gaming franchise. And I think I read that was his final stuff was on Air Mech for Inkle, but maybe they put some stuff on Wake Up Tacoma, which was 2019, which we saw them in 2018 down in Baltimore during the Days of Darkness Fest. And I think they played one song, Eye on You, right?
Yeah, so this was Wake Up Tacoma. This is an interesting album. Yeah, so again, this is probably like their more like radio friendly, I guess, um, material with Eye on You, Wake Up Tacoma, kind of like very again, kind of earworm choruses and
Is
um,
this the one with Falco song on it?
yeah. So this has Rock Me Amadeus, which is probably one of the weirdest surprises you'd get from Frontline. But again, I kind of like surprises, so I thought that was kind of funny. Um, so
Yeah, and also Reese contributed to writing on this one, and then he toured with him because he was at that show we saw.
yeah, I mean this yeah, he was kind of back on board in this album. Again, this is like mostly clean singing. Uh, Tilt is a cool track. Negative Territory, and you got the last track with Chris Connolly on vocals from Revolting Cox,
Oh,
um,
right.
which again lots of cross pollination there. Yeah, so Slingerland was involved in a lot of her writing in this album,
Yeah, he
along
was.
more so than anybody else other than Lee.
And I remember
So
seeing those guys. They're all really yeah. Like Jeremy died when he was like 34, 36, or
38, I think, or
38.
maybe
Okay.
or it was 30s
And I
sometime.
mean, Jared Slingerland looks pretty young too. He was a pretty young dude when we first saw him. I imagine he's probably in his late 30s or early 40s now, but he just looked well to me. He looked young because I'm 55, so
Yeah,
that's probably why. But and then the last album is 2021. I think it came out in January, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Mechanical
Uh,
Soul.
January 15.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
Feels like it
Mechanical.
almost just came out. Yeah, Mechanical Soul. I don't have that one.
I don't have it either. Have you listened?
Yeah, I've listened to it. And I don't know. I have very weird feelings about it. It's like it's Frontline, but there's there's like a lot of the tracks to me share the same issue to me, which there's there's elements I enjoy in them, but I keep waiting for like something cool to happen or the track to change in some way. Just
Not
because
happening.
some of the best music is where it surprises you, right? Those get that whole like goosebumps from when something happens musically that you don't expect.
Right.
And I just feel like I keep wanting it to change within the track, and it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I listened to like the first two songs, and it just It just didn't do anything for me. And look, Bill's. I don't know that I'd use the word pioneer. I'd call him a legend because there are only a few legends in that that genre to me. Obviously, the Puppy People and maybe Front 242, and there's a lot of imitators. That genre spawned a lot of imitators, and I think Bill was pretty. He was pretty adept at jumping between a lot of different sounds to incorporate into the Frontline Assembly sound and keep it relatively fresh while somewhat being a bit of a trend jumper, but it worked. But he
there's
also was doing
nothing necessarily wrong with that. At least
no.
you don't want to keep making the same album, right?
Right.
Even if it's TNI, right? Like you can't keep making that. So
right. And I think the other thing to add to that is we mentioned all the side projects. He had the success of, I don't know what the guy's worth, but I imagine he's not he's not Rod Stewart and he's not Paul McCartney, but he's not the guys in ISIS. He made some money, you know what I mean? Or he's not. Let me think of somebody different. Like he's not the guys in Rivers of Nile, some metal band that are struggling playing clubs. Bill's never been a huge touring attraction. I don't know how Delirium has done touring because I never went out to see him. They did some tours.
They did like a couple tours, and unfortunately, I never did get to see them.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Would have been interesting.
But my point with that is that he definitely made some money off. Him and Reese made some good money off the Delirium situation. And my guess is that Frontline, although it's his first love, it wasn't his financial love because he knew he was never going to make tons and tons of money from it. But they're again, he's not an innovator, but in a way he kind of is because albums like TNI, Millennium, Hardwired, they're pretty critical albums, I think, for for the genre.
I don't want to get into an argument of innovator or not because everybody borrowed from everybody else, and especially in the industrial scene, it kind of grew together. But I still think it's kind of a unique band. I don't know if did we lose Jeff, or is he...
No, I'm here.
Okay, just your video drop. Anyway, but upside down. I still think they have a somewhat unique place in in the spectrum, and it evolved over time. But all major acts do, and if they don't, they get boring, right? If it's a band making the same album, eventually you stop buying that because you already heard that album. So,
well, you know what? A good example of that is Dream Theater. Now, for me, I love the first 4, 5, 6 Dream Theater albums. I just really am not interested in what they're doing anymore. I listen to the new album, listen to 2 songs. I'm like, oh Christ, I've heard these songs for the last 7 albums. They're the same songs, same vocals, same songs, same melodies. It's the same thing over and over and over again. And I will say that for me, Frontline about 2010 after IED started to feel like that a little bit. It's not that I dislike the stuff because I don't dislike it. It's just it's not something I'm.
Well, I would argue it never really quite hit. Where I would keep making the same album because again, Echo Genetic was like the dubstep album. I mean, it changed, right? Just again with the new one, there wasn't, something was missing, right? So I don't, maybe there was not enough inspiration musically or whatever. But again, it's different from from some say like EBM bands like I don't know Assemblage 23 or something, where it's just every album sounds the same, even though they're technically very listenable tracks, but. Or like whatever KMFDM, like the last however many albums are they
true
musically different? No,
yeah.
Can they be enjoyable individually? Sure,
Right. Now you're right. That's a good analogy as to, and I'm not going to speak on Skinny because I haven't really listened to the last 4 or 5 albums really in depth. I mean, for me, every Skinny Puppy album was kind of unique and different up through probably the Greater. But I think that's a good example is KMFDM. they had all the way up through probably Symbols was the last album I remember listening to that was really really good, that I dug. You know, Money, Neil. What's the one before Money?
I don't remember very well.
You can't. I have terrible memory, so
Yeah, I'm terrible with it too.
yeah.
No.
But they all were different, and they all felt different, and they all sounded different. And then suddenly KMFDM suddenly started sounding all the same to me too. Same thing with Nine Inch Nails. I've not really listened to Nine Inch Nails in years because they just started to sort of sound the same to me.
I mean, he had some experimental sort of releases.
Well, the Ghost stuff, and
Yeah, but if you're talking about like the more commercial albums, then
right.
look, I think
Mm.
when, especially when when you're talking about a prolific project like Frontline, with how many albums did we cover, and that's
17.
and that's including and that's in addition to a side project.
Yeah,
Again,
it's a lot of material.
you can't expect constant, you know, constant awesomeness,
Yeah, you're talking
and different.
over 25 or 30 albums. You're talking a couple hundred songs, man. I mean, and it's a lot, And I mean, the cool thing is meeting Bill. He's a cool guy. He's not. There's no air of superiority or assholes.
Yeah,
Guys,
and
he's
I know a bunch of people like in the New York scene that have met him, and people generally had good things to say about him. Um, you know, what I liked kind of prepping for this show is it made me go back and re-listen to the whole discography,
mm-hmm.
and I realized just how consistently good it was.
Right.
How much just good stuff I could find from album to album, from decade to decade. It's not something I can say about a lot of bands, a lot of projects.
I
Uh,
agree. I agree. It's consistent. That's a great word for it. There are high moments and high points that stand out. For me, to go back through it, I would probably rank maybe a top five. Do you want to throw that out there? For me, I would put Hardwired number one. I would put TNI number two. Probably Implode Implode probably three, and Millennium four, and then probably, believe it or not, Flavor of the Week probably five for me. That period was very fruitful and very, very. It's just good stuff. Rewind would be on that list too because I think Rewind's as good as Flavor. Um, the early stuff is not throwaway. There's some interesting stuff there that if you like a lot of the mid-period stuff, you may find the early stuff has some validity for you. Not all of it's good. I mean, State of Mind is not a very good album, and I don't think that Gash Senses is very good, quite frankly. But I think there's other stuff there off Corroded Disorder that's good. Even the Total Terror and the first album have some moments on it. And then the later stuff, for me, the later stuff, IED, Epitaph, Civilization, and Artificial Soldier, they're all worthwhile entries into the catalog. I'm not going to speak to the last three or four albums, the two soundtracks and the two albums, because I just don't know them well enough. I should have. I just didn't have time to get there. And I, like you, Serge, going back, how about it? I texted you a bunch of different times through the week going, dude, did you realize Tactical Neuro Implant was this fucking good? Like, it was just one of those things that hit me. It was like, man, this album is so damn good. And same thing with, some of the other material where I'd be like, wow, I completely forgot how great this album is. And you're right. That speaks to consistency and clearly talent. You don't write that much good music. Some bands have one great album. And look at Boston. The band Boston is a critical example. They put out one of the best debut albums in the history of music. Their second album is good, but it's not great. The third album is, meh. And ever since then, their albums are absolutely terrible. They're terrible. It's like they're not even listenable. They're garbage. And there aren't many bands that put out classic albums and are consistent like that. So I agree, man. Any last thoughts there, Mariano?
I'm gonna say, yeah, I agree. It's difficult to be constant in quality, and maybe because I compare with other industrial musicians, that have really prolific careers. For example, I am a big fan of Justin Brody of Goldflesh, and Goldflesh is one of my favorite industrial bands of all time. And the dude
Sure.
put a lot of projects, and I like the majority of the do that. But it's really difficult to be in that standard of quality when you make this kind of music. It's difficult to be relevant. Uh, and Frontline Assembly did a lot for this end.
Hmm.
I feel it's respectable. I don't know. You can be worse.
It could be worse, that's for sure, no doubt. I mean, here's a good example in reverse. Killing Joke. The first Killing Joke album is fantastic. After that, I'm not crazy about the next three albums. I own them. I like them. They're okay. But
I
man,
like
they
it a lot.
went well. That's cool, and we all have different vibes on that. But they're
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
I like them. I like them. I don't love them. But then they went kind of synth pop with Nighttime and Brighter Than a Thousand Suns, which are two of my favorite fucking albums. And most Killing Joke fans hate those albums, but I love them.
Great. I love it
And
too.
then you get into their most prolific period with Pandemonium and Democracy and Money or not Money is our God the
What?
self-titled album,
Yeah, 2003 or 2001.
right?
Yeah,
And
the
and then
Negro
you got
album,
and then you get into the metal period with Hosannas from
Hosannas,
the Basement of Hell, and you get
fucking awesome album.
dude. For me, Killing Joke's going to be one we're going to do. Nick's going to jump in on that one because I fucking love. They just kept going from strength to strength the last several albums. So it's just weird. I wish I liked the newer FLA a little bit more. But it's not that I don't like it. It's just that it doesn't grab me the way that it used to. But if anybody's tuning into this tonight and took anything from this, I would say that for me the middle period of Frontline is the stuff that really grabs me. But I do like some of the early stuff, and I do like some of the later stuff. And for me, Bill is a legend in the genre. He's Bill and Reese, for that matter, are
Yeah.
both legends in the genre. Chris too, because he was pretty instrumental in their sound. And as Serge said, this is a band that if you get a chance to go see them live, which you were supposed to be seeing them this month, Serge, remember?
Yeah. So quick story on that, right? So I had tickets to see Ministry, KMFDM, and Frontline in the summer of 2020 before COVID hit. So obviously that show got canceled. I'm like fuck. Um,
Yeah, difficult times.
then over the summer they said, okay, we've rescheduled the show um, for October. Um, so basically like now, and but um, KMFDM can't make it because their European member can't get over or whatever. So they replaced KMFDM with Helmet. I'm like, all right, well, Frontline's still playing, so I'm still good. And then they just postponed the whole thing to spring, and now it's just Ministry with Corrosion of Conformity and Melvins. And so
Good
even,
lineup.
even though they kept calling the tour and Industrial Strength, I think, something like that, I'm like, well, you dropped industrial bands, so I don't know. So I sold my ticket because I don't know. That's
Oh, did
not.
you sell it? Did you sell it?
Oh, I guess I should say I sold it. I just I got a refund.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, listen, I'll listen to Ministry occasionally, but I don't need to see them live again. So
I've actually never seen Ministry. They, as much as I do enjoy a couple of the very early albums,
talk
I'm
about a
not.
band that you know the albums sort of sound the same.
To me, they do. To me, they do. Yeah.
Yeah, the late album sucks. The new album is really good for me. And I see the band live, and was one of the worst shows I see in my life. Was really
No
bad.
shit. Oh, really?
Was
Real
really
bad.
bad. Was really bad. And I have the option to see N2 Maybe, and I lost it, and Petrov died. Fuck. So
Nah, nah. Um. So in closing, I guess Serge, we wrapped this in 3 hours. That's pretty fucking good to go through all those. Out. We were well researched on this tonight, I think. I think
Yeah,
we were
yeah.
ready
I
to
think
go.
we prepped, and only 3 people, so it's a little easier.
Well, you know what I learned from the Rush stream? I think 3 people is where I'm going to cap it. I want to do Opeth, and I may expand that to 4, but every other one of these I'm going to stay at 3 because I think you just get too many opinions going, and it's just a long deal. Mariana, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. I know
Thank you
you
for
weren't
having me.
I know you weren't prepared for this, so but you join
No
all my
problem, man.
streams, and I wanted to have you
Thank you very
jump
much.
in here, and I knew you knew a little bit about this stuff, so I want to thank you
Yeah,
again, Serge. I want to thank you for jumping in, and you and I've been on a long ride, right, dude, between this band and Porcupine Tree and some of our other favorite bands. We've
Yeah,
kind of
and again, one of the best things about Frontline is I got to meet Jeff through it. So.
well, some people would say that's one of the worst things about but I'm not so bad, am I? I think I'm pretty good, dude. But yeah, I mean, it is weird thinking back to that day. Like, I can tell you this much: we would not have met if I was not wearing that shirt. You wouldn't have said anything to me. You would have had no idea
No, I
who,
don't think so. Yeah, I'm not one to usually start
Right?
conversations.
Yeah, you're a pretty quiet dude, and I wouldn't have. I think you were wearing a tan shirt, as I recall, but I don't remember what the band was, if it was one.
I couldn't
And
tell you what it
and the
was.
funny thing is, you had really short hair back then. You were Winston. I remember that. And if I hadn't been wearing that Frontline shirt, there's no way you would have said anything to me, and we would have 22. Well, let's see, we've known each other 23 years almost, right?
Yeah,
And we've had a lot of history, man. I mean, we've gone to a shit ton of shows. We've been to on a lot of tour buses. We've flown out to the West Coast. We've driven out to the West Coast. Or not driven, but we've driven to fucking
trying to cross on this coast.
hellholes in New Jersey. We've driven to down to the bowels of New York City. We've been out till 3 a.m. stopping at Dunkin' Donuts in Jersey, and I mean, we've done some kick ass shit. And you know as well as I do, you're one of my very best friends, and it we never would have happened without Frontline Assembly and Porcupine Tree for that matter. So there was two things there that came into play because if PT doesn't play down there
Oh
and
yeah,
you don't
you
drive
needed
down
both of
there,
them. Yeah. Mhm.
that would we and I don't wear that shirt, nothing happens the way that it happens. History is rewritten, for God's sake. The earth would not spin on its axis. So it's crazy, man, crazy. But I hope that anybody that watched tonight got something out of this. We did have 7 8 people watching at one point, which I think is pretty nice because for my Rush stream we only had 5. That was the max. um, we did have a lot of people go back and look at the Porcupine Tree. I'm approaching 300 views on that, which is by far my best view, my best most views. And then on the Rush one, I'm approaching 260, so that one might be in the same neck and as this one. I hope that Frontline gets as many views. I'm not gonna bank on it, but I hope that it does. And for anybody that's watching, some people ask me what gas mask and hand grenades means. That's just my show tag. It's just the name of my show, Gas Mask and Hand Grenades. A band did put an album out by the name of that. I forget the name of it, but that's not where I got it. I just like the words. And if I'm well enough to continue, which is very iffy at this point, I am struggling with my health very badly now. If I am able to continue, I'd like to do a Skinny Puppy one. I'd like to do an Opeth one yet, a Fates Warning one. So there are a couple left, but I'm kind of glad that we finally got to do this, Serge, because we talked about it about a year ago and finally knocked it out. And it was very rewarding for me. I went back and rediscovered some albums that I really, really love, and it was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Same.
So, any closing comments from
Interesting.
anybody? We all good?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining me, and go ahead, Serge.
Oh,
No?
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll see
Interesting
you,
talk.
Mariana.
thanks,
Thanks
guys.
for joining us. If we do a Skinny Puppy one, I'll let you know, and I'm not sure when we'll
Okay,
do it. I got a lot more studying to do on them than I do on Frontline, so
I
we'll
can
we'll
talk
let you
about
know.
Opeth too. I was a really big Opeth fan.
Okay. Well, we'll consider that. And you only had one glitch in your internet. That's pretty damn good, seeing as you're in. Where are you at in Argentina?
Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires.
It's the
Okay, so
capital. It's the capital
pretty
of
big.
Argentina.
Pretty big ass city. That's how many people there? A couple million?
4 million.
4 million. Okay, so that's a big ass city. Yeah.
No,
Serge is just outside of New York City. He's in East Brunswick,
New Brunswick.
New Brunswick. Okay. I'm in the cow town. I'm in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is only 70,000 people. So that's why let's hope Amish hand. Yeah, let's hope that when I go to replay this, my video is not fucked up like it was the last time for the last stream. But we'll hope that everything's good. But again, guys, thanks for joining me. We did it in 3 hours and 10 minutes. So next time we'll see you on Gas Masks and Hand Grenades, maybe next Saturday. So see you guys.
bye bye.
Bye bye.